Hello folks and welcome back. In this video we're going to be covering chapter 9 for my book. That's going to go over my Easter 2019 rituals, the Notre Dame Cathedral fire, Beelzebub, the three Christ story and the Crucifixion, the heliocentric versus geocentric models, tropical and sidereal astrology, and the age of Aquarius. Now if you recollect in chapter 8 I went over my Norton Church ritual with my replica of the Lord of the Rings Sauron ring representing the forces of Saturn and me actively trying to disband the spell work and the binding of this malevolent sphere of Saturn and what that's otherwise connected into, right, with the Saturn Moon matrix, then all the way up the stack of the chain of our holographic time matrix with the Universal Stargate system, it being connected to Universal Stargate 7 Arcturus, Phantom Arcturus, especially with the Jehovian Anu Elohim, with Galactic Stargate being Saturn in our solar system. And that then led me on to, more entheogen experiences with LSD. And then I had a huge initiation with the two orbs in the woods in November in 2018, right at Cannon Hill in Dorset, England, which was a very testing time when I was kind of suspended in this kind of interdimensional maze, right? And when I rejoined the super yacht, I later found out after I blacked out that first night I was back after going out on a night out, I found out about a week or 2 weeks later that the ring had cracked and there was a funny energetic phenomenon that kind of changed the shape of my toothbrush handle as well, that represented a hexagon on the bottom of my toothbrush, which triggered me to go look for my ring. And I found my ring and there was like a pure hairline crack down the middle. So for those folks, obviously I worked for 4 months on that super yacht, so they asked me to work an extra month after coming back from those rituals that I did in this November. So I came back on the boat on December. I was meant to do 3 months, but they asked me to work an extra month, which I did. I said yes. But it's quite interesting because as a result of me kind of having my expectations of coming back in March, given everything that was going on in my private life with my expeditions and seeking and initiations, right, I was kind of like really not wanting to be there and really wanted to get back and kind of delve a bit deeper into, why did I experience what I've experienced? What is really going on? I want to seek more. I need more answers. I've got more questions, obviously, with what I've just been through. And everything that I was out picturing on the super yacht, right, for the spirit animals, the 1111 Antares again, linked into Scorpio, that I guess my body language with what the boss was picking up, the owner of the boat, was showing that I couldn't be bothered to be there. And I was kind of starting to think with this dissonance of how these guys are making billions upon billions, right? He's a billionaire. I mean, yes, we do get paid well, but we're just well-paid slaves. Like we don't speak unless we're spoken to, and it's kind of like we're treated as if we're subhuman, and we've got to kind of keep out of the way like rats in the sewers in the boat in order for the guests to kind of enjoy the opulence and grandeur and not really share that with the rest of the world. And I was just thinking like it's so discordant, and it goes into obviously what I knew about the economics to begin with and how this whole system is set up on an anti-Christic model, that I guess there was a few interactions with the guests and the boss that kind of my body language, the way I interacted with them, I kind of had this fuck off attitude, like I can't be fucked with this anymore, like who do you guys think you are, kind of thing. And so when I came back off the boat after working that extra month, I the next day got a phone call from the captain, and he said, unfortunately, I have to let you go, because obviously the boss wasn't happy and he couldn't have someone who was kind of like showing a little mini rebellion. You need to be compliant, you need to be told what to do, and that's basically what it is on a super yacht. It's kind of like the Navy, you need to appear perfect every day, day in, day out, and be very professional and deal with the customers and the clients, only speaking they're spoken to, and kind of just maintain this like real artificial fake character, I guess, that it was rubbing off on me basically, given everything else that I wanted to start seeking and delving more into with what was happening to me on a spiritual level, right, with this kind of activation. So it was a blessing in disguise, and otherwise he was upset, so was the crew. I was kind of like, yes, no, this is good because actually I can, with the time now, go forward and start investigating what the hell is going on with me since my activation and everything I've experienced thus far. Because I was, I got on really well with the crew and the captain. So they were sad to see me go, but they had no other choice. But for me, it was like a blessing in disguise. And I received a severance package, which was quite interesting, which is kind of probably like a little bit of hush money because I probably would have had a case of like unfair dismissal for the few little things that he picked up on that were the reasons why he wanted to let me go, which wasn't really a big deal in the grand scheme of things. But I was thinking, based on everything that's going on, I was just like happy to put a stop to that and focus more on my spiritual work. So for those wondering what happened to my ring, well, actually, because when I found out, we were then crossing the Atlantic to go from Europe to the Caribbean for the Caribbean season, and I think it was around halfway across the Atlantic, I chucked that Saturn's ring off the super yacht in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean. So it's somewhere in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean on the seabed, on the sea floor, unless some fish ate it before it touched the seabed. So yeah, I disposed of the ring, and the toothbrush I didn't keep either. I later burned it and just melted it and disposed of it because it had that hexagon in there that I didn't obviously, I knew it was linked into Saturn and Moon and this kind of sextant Metatronic anti-Christic mathematics. So I just disposed of both of them. And yeah, just to clarify that in case people are wondering, like, oh, where's the ring? Where's the toothbrush? Kind of looking back, I wish I kept it as like, souvenirs, but otherwise, recorded photographs of it. So I've got proof, which I'm pleased I did. So that is that. And so when I came back, it was around Easter time, so end of March, beginning of April. And I was obviously wanting to delve into like seeking more answers as to what was going on, what I'm experiencing. And I had the house to myself. It was a free house. My old man was away in New Zealand with his partner. And so I remember coming back, and I think I read a book by Manly P. Hall called The Occult Anatomy of Man that I'd already purchased, but I just haven't read yet. And I remember reading this, and it gave me an idea that I did within these 2 weeks. I had probably about 2 or 3 entheogen experiences using Mexican cubensis mushrooms, right, where some really interesting things start to happen. But the book otherwise elucidated and add a little bit more detail with what I'd studied under Santos Bonacci of astrobiology, which is kind of what you can see here on the left with the astrological wheel and how, man is linked into the zodiac with how the ecliptic runs through our bodies from head to toe, right from Aries being the head, the cerebrum, the Taurus being the ear, nose, and throat, the cerebellum in the back of the brain, and all these correspondences, Gemini being the 2 lungs, the two arms, the twins, and so on and so forth, until you get to Pisces being the 2 feet, and you can see how it kind of wraps around and the associated elements and stuff like this, which goes into the Schussler cell salts. Given a 9-month gestation, we're always 3 months short of the cell salts that are needed in order to obviously, unlock vitality and health for us. That there's certainly a lot of wisdom to unlock within the astrological model, because it is the program being run down here within the hologram, which we can glean definitely a lot of wisdom and benefits from when unlocking the virtues from these astral influences in the causal realms and trying to limit and recognize the vices. As with me, I showed in the chapter 1, when I incarnated in here, I was based on Jupiter and Mars's aspect of the astral light that was influenced on my template. I had a lot of issues with my throat, ear, nose, and throat, and all throughout my life, I've still had a lot of issues physically and energetically with like speaking and projecting my voice, especially. And otherwise, you had nose issues, ear issues, inner ear issues. That obviously, if you recollect, when I was a baby, I couldn't breathe for like the first year if I was ever on my back because my tonsils were inflamed. Okay, so there's a lot of wisdom to unpack when understanding astrology, because it is simply getting to know the characters and the logic and influences of these grand celestial beings that have huge cymatic and astral, subtle level and physical level influences on our hologram and reality system down here, the realm of effects, right? And so that's a good one that has a lot of information. We also have, you see here on the right, which is all taken from Universal True School, which is Santos Bonacci's website that you can get your hands on and actually get sent proper big posters of these replicas images that you see. Is the ecliptic running from head to toe, again with the constellations, and the north and south decans. Okay, and then again, going back to Scorpio, you can see Scorpio is right there over the gonads where Antares is, Judas. The Scorpion actually almost looks like a J with the shape of it. Then you've got all the northern decans, which obviously leads up through Ophiuchus and into Corona Borealis and Hercules, and that section of the sky that's very salient, with Arcturus in Bootes being Universal Stargate 7, linked to the Phantom Arcturus with the Anu Elohim, Jehovians, and you also have just to the west of that, or to the left of that, is obviously the Cradle of Lyra, where supposedly our time matrix was seeded, with dimensional gates 10, 11, and 12, which was the point of original sin that created this black hole based on the warring between the Anu Elohim and the fallen seraphim races. Okay, which otherwise I think the section of the Jehovah Anu Elohim, although it's influenced by a matrix that had already fallen by the Apollyon races, that kind of got in and crept into the psyche, I believe, of these families, which then, obviously started the beginning of the series of actions and events that led to the creation of the black hole in our current holographic time matrix. All right, so very, very interesting, and that's why obviously in Freemasons they put the apron and the lambskin over that area, because they know that that can be a potent force that needs to be transmuted and through discipline and focus worked with in order to raise it up into the higher head rather than releasing it into the lower head, because it can be a very destructive force with that sexual fire energy linked to the kundalini, that if it isn't grounded properly and if it isn't kind of transmuted properly, it can certainly lead to a very destructive and degenerative path for individuals, as I later came to find out too, with this kind of energy and this center that is certainly used by the fallen forces to manipulate a lot within people's subtle body anatomy. I mean, there's famous images, I think, from David Icke's book with some research that he referenced of these reptilian beings kind of grabbing hold of individuals from the bottom two chakras, which is obviously the root chakra and the sacral plexus, which is linked into the sexual desire and the safety element of like fear and survival and feeling, safe. Okay, so those are the two centers that are probably most manipulated in individuals from these fallen forces, given that, our sexual creative energy is exactly that. It can be used to create life. It can be used to help manifest things down here. So yeah, it's very important to kind of tame the dragon, right? With Archangel Michael slaying the dragon could be another interpretation and lens of that, taming that kind of potent force. Now, unfortunately, given the manipulations and mutations of our template down here, can be quite destructive if we do not tame that inner sexual desire and fire that we all have within us. So leading up to Easter in 2019, the 2 weeks I encountered a lot of weird events, but then consciously working to find out more answers to what I've just been through and probe into the nature of our reality. And again, working with trying to anchor in more of my higher self, unlock my higher senses, reveal more revelations and truth. Okay, so I'm just going to skim over this briefly with a few images and get into the real important stuff in regards to the three Christ story and the crucifixion. Right, so I'm going to go through these experiences I had for the next 2 weeks leading up to the Easter Sunday and the Notre Dame Cathedral fire, right? So the day before my first trip I had planned since coming back, I was working on the computer in the afternoon. I remember hearing this like bzz, bzz, bzz outside, and I was thinking, what is that? And I was trying to focus and I couldn't. It was distracting me. So I got up and went outside and had a look. And otherwise, in an upside down turned flower pot, I just turned it onto the side and I could see a bumblebee, as you see the image up there, was caught in the web with these spiders that were obviously, attacking it and obviously laced it with the venom, and it was slowly working. That was really distressing, and because it was within this flower pot, it was like amplified, really loud. And I was kind of like looking at this and thinking like, God, this is like nature. Nature is like actually really cruel. And obviously later on found out with the freedom teachings work that we are in a mutated reality system that has been injected and infiltrated by the Metatronic anti-Christic vampire mathematics and technologies by these fallen races who need to feed, and have kind of injected us with the belief of the survival of the fittest, natural selection, might is right, dominion based agendas, right, in order for them to subjugate living systems to submit to them feeding with this like predator prey victim victimizer programming that's gone on, right? That we're stuck in, a lot of people are still stuck in Plato's cave chasing shadows, not realizing that we're in a semi-fallen system that's got 2/3 of this anti-Christic natural, so-called natural laws running through it, which are completely unnatural, and only a third that is actually linked into and tied in, back into the eternal life Christic mathematics, which is the the time waves and the mathematics that are allowing us at this time to get up and out of it when the time comes, with the battling of the spirals, if you recollect in previous chapters, going through the difference in the mathematics. that was like, yeah, wow, okay. In the afternoon, obviously knowing what came afterwards, it definitely was a warning in regards to the kind of energies and spirits around the house, with me already pre-planning to do the experience the next day in order to delve a little bit deeper into, what's going on. And so later that evening, I also had like a really weird fly appear on my computer screen when doing some research that was like huge. It was like obviously a horsefly, but just looked more demonic than normal. That was around for a few minutes, and I kept shooing it away, and it kept coming back on my screen, like in my vision, let me know it's there. And I was kind of like, yeah, it's a bit weird. And I connected to the bumblebee and the fly, but I kind of thought nothing of it and overlooked it. But obviously, knowing what I went through, it was definitely a warning of the kind of energies and spirits that are around with the forces I encountered the next day in my first trip. And so, which was obviously linked into Beelzebub, right? The so-called Lord of the Flies, and that kind of bumblebee, the buzz, and the way the Beelzebub phonically sounds like this kind of bumblebee. If the similar phonics and stuff that are used in the word and the lettering. And so the next day, I took 2.5 grams of the Mexican cubensis, and again, as it was dialing up, connect to my higher self and up my higher senses, what is going on, open myself to more revelations and truth, etc. And I ran the bath, decided to go in the bath, started to dial in as the bath was filling up, and I was lying in there, and I started noticing all these cymatic patterns in like fractal patterns and geometric shapes pulsing through my forearms and my arms when I was looking down at it. That was overlaying my skin, and it was kind of like my energetic signature, like how you got fingerprints, but it was like energetically my unique imprint of my cymatic pattern, my morphogenetic pattern. And I was like watching this, and it was pulsing, and I must have been watching this for about a minute, and I was like, wow, this is so cool. But then all of a sudden, it was like a sentinel programming kicked in, right, in the fucking matrix we're in. And I just got like, all of a sudden, it felt like I was in a hyperbaric oxygen chamber with a pressurized cabin. All this pressure all of a sudden just came down at me with some discordant frequency, like really sick, ill frequencies. And I was like, oh, no, 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 no. What is going on? I was thinking, oh, shit, here we go. We're in for a bad experience here. Another testing experience. So I kind of shot up out the bath, turned the taps off, and ran upstairs, dried off, got changed. And this force that I felt just kind of like slowly crept up to where it got to a point where it was like really oppressive. And I remember I kind of felt like a rat stuck in a maze with it being slowly heated, and I was scampering and there was no way out, but it felt like it was coming from outside the house in from almost all angles, but mainly from above and through the windows. And because our house is like really airy and really light naturally, and there's not many like blinds in the windows, I felt like I need to get away from being seen from the windows with what might be outside, right? With like a cloaked ship, all these entities. I remember going down into under the stairs where the laundry and the dryer was, and because there was like coats hung up on the door that leads to outside that had like a few glass panes in there that would let in some of the natural light in that I can kind of scamper and spread out, so it kind of blocked the light. And I remember sitting there with the dryer that I turned on in order to have something to anchor my consciousness and to focus on whilst I try and ride this out. And I must have been there for like maybe 20 minutes just trying to like focus my consciousness on the sound of the dryer and just anchor myself there, and just saying to myself, this too will pass, this too will pass, this too will pass. Just stay strong and just kind of focus my mind and just anchoring here in the here and now, not focusing too much on this oppressive energy. But it didn't go away. And so I remember getting up and thinking, I need to think of something to just kind of shift the energies. What can I do? What can I do? And I remember just getting this kind of little message: go grab your phone and your headphones. And so I ran upstairs, grabbed my phone and my headphones, plugged it in, and put on some music. Then I went back downstairs to the lounge room, and I started dancing like these old shamans would dance, like stomping the floor and like doing these contortions as if you're like chucking invisible monkeys off your back, right? As if I was like wrestling invisible entities and energies, and kind of then chucking energy and like dispelling ill energies from me and my auras, whilst I was like spinning around and stomping my feet. And after about 30 seconds of doing that, it actually worked. I managed to shift the energy, and everything changed. And it was like really triumphant, jubilant, relieving, obviously. And what happened after that was another series of really, really weird events, because I kind of felt like, oh my God, yes, there was like a sentinel programming kicking in, that as soon as I started to see like my true nature of like my energetic form, right, it was almost as if like, bang, like these sentinels were released, and it was like, no, we can't have someone like breaking through the matrix and seeing exactly what's going on. So it was kind of like, bang, right, we need to snuff him out and suppress him, and put him back in his box, his little 666 box down here. That it was like, yes, you bastards, f you. Who the hell do you think you are, trying to suppress me finding the truth? It was kind of like, I had almost like a lot of divine anger in me, wanting to go at them and say like, come on, you pussy, show yourself to me. Why are you hiding behind all these technologies? XYZ. And so yeah, I had all this like divine fire in me, basically ready to be released, because I was just like, felt like I'd been hit by someone I couldn't see but ready to fight, in a sense. But there was a series of weird events that happened after that, not too long after that, and one of which was this sense that I got this message. Obviously started to connect to what was happening yesterday. It was like, oh my god, yeah, the bumblebee and the fly and this kind of spirit that's linked to Beelzebub. And as I was kind of putting that together, I almost felt like these cords being cut that were like invisibly attached through my head and into certain centers in my brain that are managing certain systems in my body. None more so than the like apostat center, which is linked to hunger. And so I remember experiencing, just for like a moment that must be no longer than like 30 seconds, this change in me all of a sudden like salivating, then stopping salivating, and then feeling really hungry, then not feeling hungry. That were connected into what I felt like was being kind of done on an energetic level, metaphysical level, of chords that were connected into me. And I kind of got this message of the master puppet, and I'm cutting the cords to the master puppet. And I was thinking, wow, that is so interesting, like how that was connected into it, and how I was being manipulated through my hunger and salivating and stuff like this. It was like flicking on and off like multiple times for 30 seconds, then it kind of just dissipated and went back to normal, like my normal state. And so after that, I remember grabbing some incense, burning it, and then I walked outside the back of the garden. This is all in the afternoon, right, around springtime, so it was actually a clear day. And as soon as I walked out the back, I remember hearing like these really loud jets, and it made me turn around and look, and they literally came right over the house. This massive military bomber with two fighter jets either side that was so low I could literally throw a stone and it would have hit the belly of these jets and these planes that passed directly over me. And obviously I knew immediately this was linked to exactly what was going on, that I just kind of tapped into with releasing this sentinel kind of program in order to kind of suppress me with what I was seeing and tapping into energetically. That they may have been cloaked ships, but they carried with them the same sound and appearance of a military bomber, which was massive, and these two jets that were so low that I've never seen any military planes, especially in our area, on flight paths come right over the house like that as soon as I walked outside. It was no coincidence. It was obviously part of like the forces that were around, probably cloaked ships, like I said, that were brought to the house based on what I was tapping into. And so after that, I was thinking like, flipping heck, like yeah, there was definitely some stuff around that I was tapping into, and like these guys were observing me and kind of keeping an eye on me. But it was kind of like otherwise a triumph that I knew I kind of shook off and dispelled them trying to do what they were trying to do to me. But they were kind of just passing over and just obviously keeping eyes. And then I remember just lying back in the back garden after that event and soaking in a bit of sun, obviously just relieved that I kind of shifted the energies of the place, and looked directly above me, and there was like these two hawks circling within what would have been a cylindrical kind of column and a pillar that connected all the way down from like where my chest area is, surrounding my body, probably a 3 meter diameter. And if I drew a line, a pillar directly up straight, there were these two hawks or some kind of birds of prey that were so high up I could see them, that were just circling within it directly above me for like probably a good 5 to 10 minutes as I was outside, just soaking in the sun and kind of just reveling in the really harmonious energies that were now kicking in from the mushrooms and from what I just experienced. And so that was very eventful, and that was kind of the first trip. But then obviously looking back, it was obviously a warning with what I had show up and pop up in the hologram with the bumblebee and the fly. So I remember after a time I got back up, and as I walked back inside, I remember seeing on the wall, on the brick here, you can see I took a photo of, because it caught my attention because it was like directly symmetrical, and you can see like one side of it was sprayed, and it kind of again was confirming this nature that kept coming through to me with like how my right side my right side, I've been split. Something's happened to my right side where I've always felt like I've just been wounded, right? Whatever happened before coming here or whilst coming here, there's been this kind of split that obviously I've mentioned before. You can actually see physiologically down the center of my body, like there's this stitching and this kind of brick with the white sprawl of whatever it is, maybe like algae or fungus, almost represents like this kind of right in the center and this right wing, whereas on the left side it's kind of not present. And I was thinking, wow, this is kind of confirming. I just got drawn to it as I walked past, so I took a photo of it, right? And so then next thing I did later on that night, as I was on the come down, I think I remember drawing, as you can see in the bottom right there, a representation of the astrological wheel, and with the summer solstice at the top, obviously representing, the spring and summer months in the northern hemisphere, and down below the winter solstice governed by Saturn. Again, this kind of opposition and polarity between the sun and Saturn, God and Satan, etc. That I also assigned yes, which is otherwise another name for the sun. Yeses, Jesus. That goes into dissecting that name and how we always, when we're looking at the sun, it kind of, where we get our yes and nodding from is actually looking from the horizon up to where the sun is, which is kind of like this confirmation, affirmation of that which is positive, that which is good. Whereas no, it's kind of like, you don't look at Saturn at the horizon in the winter. It's always kind of like cold, dark, gloomy, can't grow anything. It's very hard, so it's always associated with that kind of Saturnic oppressive force. And obviously I didn't realize, but looking back, it made a lot of sense that I had a message come through with me, because this was obviously around Easter 2019, a year before what happened, obviously, with what unrolled in 2020 with the pandemic, that I drew a Metatronic cube down below connected to Notre and Saturn, and got this message of 2020 coming through as well, which is quite interesting, which at the time I kind of didn't really think about it other than 2020 vision, like this opportunity of things being quite equal in 2020 vision, sovereignty and stuff. And obviously, what happened after that fact, looking back, I was probably getting a message telling me what was coming in regards to the attempts of the fallen forces trying to, take over the timeline, and obviously with what they're doing, bag, tag, and drag as much quantum as they can into black hole full alignment with what was happening on a much deeper metaphysical energetic level, with the warring of the spirals and the invisible war drama that's ongoing even to this day, but it's coming to the end pretty quickly. And so later on that night, I end up walking to visit my mum. So I haven't seen her yet since coming back. And as the mushrooms were wearing off, I was still in quite a jubilant mood. It's very pleasant, but it's kind of like, by this point, 7 hours after, or 8 hours after I ingested it. On one of the paths leading up to the house, I came across a pigeon, and I can see that again, this kind of broken wing symbolism come through, where this pigeon unfortunately had this right wing kind of torn off it. What happened to it, I've got no idea, but it was just sat there right in my path, and I was thinking, wow, like, what is going on? I keep getting this kind of like broken wing symbolism, and it was the right wing again, and I was thinking, what is happening? I remember picking up and putting it somewhere safe, and then I carried on and spent some time with my mum, and obviously told her about it. I was like, I don't know what to do, so I phoned RSPCA or whatever. And I thought, well, on the way back, if it's there, I'll do something about it if it's still there. And I came back and it just disappeared. So I don't know whether something took it, or it just kind of was, again, a holographic insert maybe. But yeah, very interesting. And you can see on the bottom left, this is otherwise what I received, I think, not too long after me dispelling the energies, the ill energies, earlier on with me dancing, that this was sent by Crowley Jr., which again just confirmed to me. I mean, I knew by this point, but otherwise confirming to me the kind of spirits and higher entities working through him as a vassal, which was no surprise, because he showed me the oaths he took as Nephilim, right, written in blood to Azazel, and had a massive Lucifer signal tattooed on his back. That right when I was kind of getting these revelations and downloads and breaking free of these new energies, he sends through a picture of this with no other context, just to let me know what forces are working through him, and that they're trying to kind of like seed into my mind what they want to manifest, which is obviously, the destruction of Earth, and pulling everything that's connected into it up the stack of holographic time matrix into their black hole for alignment, right? So the snake eating the Earth, very quite sinister. But like I said, by that point, I think based on who I am, it's just like water off a duck's back, and don't charge it with any energy. But otherwise confirming to me, just observing, education, Observation is educational, judgment is critical, and always in that stance of just observing, learning, growing, adapting, right? But yeah, very interesting to see that even Crowley Jr. and these individuals, which I've encountered in many different scenarios and many different flavors and angles, since my awakening, of individuals kind of just, at certain times being plugged into and used by the dark forces to kind of relay messages to me or try and get to me. So yeah, very interesting. So you can otherwise see how I was connecting that first experience with Beelzebub, given the bumblebee in the flower pot being attacked by these, getting caught in the spider web by these two spiders, and that kind of like was almost how I felt with the ill energies when they came in. That I was kind of stuck in the spider's web, and until I shifted the energy. So it was really important symbolism actually. It definitely was a warning with the kind of forces I would encounter the next day on my planned trip. And the fly that popped up that evening on my computer screen that looked demonic, and how that's connected into Lord of the Flies. And then the bomber and the two jets that came over my house, obviously planes linked to the element of the air, mastering the air element. And then obviously the hawks or the eagles, whatever birds they were, that were kind of flying within my central pillar, right up in the higher atmosphere, after this event. So all connected into like this kind of Beelzebub force of being the kind of prince of the air, connected into demonology, right? That I speculated and connected, especially given the symbolism that may have been the force that I encountered during that experience. Now, what outpictured for the next 4 or 5 nights was still some disturbances in the house, which affected the house cat that we had. And weirdly enough, during the night, there was these bangings that were happening out the back by the drain that you can see in the top left image there, at random times. And it would be around when I kind of like slip off to sleep and try and get into the astrals that I'd kind of like hear this bang, like something being slammed against the ground, and it would wake me up, as well as the cat would kind of jump on me and wake me up because I was up in the loft and there was no door to completely shut out it being able to climb up. I tried to use some barricades, but it kept finding a way to come up and come at me and kind of be on the bed and wake me up when I kind of just slip off to go to the astrals. Whether it was trying to protect me or not, I'm not too sure. But for me, it felt like a force that was very disturbing. And so before going to bed at night, I'd block it outside, and that's what you can see me blocking the cat flap, so stopping it from being able to come back in, just so I can actually have a decent night's sleep. So I already had planned a second trip, right? And this is where I extended the house as a representation of myself based off of what I learned from the Occult Anatomy of Man with Manly P. Hall, and watching a few videos on YouTube showing how like even churches as well have the 7 chakras kind of lined up at the entrance with the height of these cathedrals and buildings, but also from a bird's eye view looking down at the floor plan, you can see that you can lie the body, the anatomy of man and woman, down and see that the root chakra will be at the entrance and the altar will be at the crown chakra, right, where you go to the altar to alter your consciousness, right, and the kind of 2 limbs almost personified in the ratio of the cross that most churches are built on, right? So I was kind of like thinking, wow, I can actually use this with using this house that I'm in as an extension of my own anatomy to see what signs and messages and revelations might come through me, extending myself out as a version of this house. And so that's what I did. And if we started at the loft, that was obviously my skull. If I was sat down cross-legged, then the loft would have been my head where I was sleeping. The first floor would be pretty much everything from like throat chakra down to solar plexus, and then the first floor would be like solar plexus down to root chakra of my legs, okay, which is where the kitchen was, the lounge room, and the dining room. And so I did this, and some interesting events took place. One of which was me first noticing that there was this weird ornament in the house with, you can see on the bottom, 2 images on the bottom left, with this like red looking alien entity with another small version of itself coming out through the pineal gland, just again left there by the previous owners, positioned above the fridge there. In other words, when I was taking this, the second trip was a lot more easy. The energies, it wasn't as confrontational or testing as the first one, because the kind of I believe those energies were kind of cleared as a result of what I did that time. And so it was a much more normal, gradual increase into the amazing, tremendous feelings. And again, I was just working with trying to, reveal to me the truth. Now I've got this house set up as an extension of my vessel, reveal to me any messages and guide me to any parts of the house or whatever is going to happen, in order to, reveal to me any truth or things that I may need to assist me on my journey. And so I was also brought to the attention of a umbrella. That was a rainbow umbrella that I'd not seen before since coming back. And I was thinking, oh, wow. And I immediately connected that to my experience in Bali with seeing the rainbow bridge connect into my heart chakra, my Azare point. And I remember going outside because the moon was out. So I took the umbrella and I opened up the umbrella and I started spinning it around, directing at the moon, following this theme of obviously knowing that the moon is plugged into the Metatronic, Saturnic technologies, right? And I was spinning it whilst aiming it at the moon, projecting this rainbow type energy at it to try and kind of destroy it and push it away. Because I just knew inherently like this moon is like an implant. It's like something stuck into our neck that's controlling our hormones, our energy, our thoughts, that needs to be rid of. That on a much larger level, at a celestial level, it's like Earth has a parasite and it is this moon. So I'm there spinning the umbrella and I'm looking at the moon and I'm seeing the most weird thing happen because the moon is actually pulsing. The moon was pulsing back with me directing energy to try and like, with me spinning the umbrella and directing like rainbow current energy to it to try and destroy it and kind of dismantle it, that it was pulsing. And it was, to me, my vision, it was going dim like a dimmer switch. It was going really dim and then bright again at certain times. So I was kind of twisting and directing energy. And as I was doing this, I remember seeing in the corner of my eye in the periphery, up in the loft where I was sleeping, these kind of lightning bolts and these flashes going off in the room. And I'm thinking, whoa, what's going on? And as that was happening, all of a sudden from the back of the garden, there was a white Persian cat that was like creamy white colored that just bolted right past me, like almost right by my legs, with our house cat in hot pursuit. And it bolted right in, and I kind of turned around and watched this as it happened. It went into the house. So it went into, remember extending this house as a reflection of my own anatomy. It entered into the house, right, with my house cat, the house cat following it into the cat flap, and I kind of was positioned that I can see through the glass sliding doors where it went into the kitchen and then hooked a turn to go up the stairs with our house cat following it. And I remember just dropping the umbrella and running inside and seeing where this thing went and where it's leading me to, because I was just thinking like something has entered into this house, which is going to lead me into like obviously a message or something. And that was like a really weird event. So I ran in and followed it, went up the stairs and checked the first floor like really carefully, see where it went. Couldn't find it anywhere. And then it led me up into the attic, right, where there's only one room. And then went up into the attic, and then again I was looking for it, couldn't see it anywhere. Otherwise saw the house cat, but I could not see this white Persian cat anywhere. Okay, whether it escaped through the window, quite possibly, and onto the roof and then out again, who knows? But it was definitely not in the house. But what it did do was lead me up into the loft, back into the room where I'd been staying, and it brought my attention to this box that I'd not seen before, that you can see in the bottom of the photo. And it otherwise had this representation of these Japanese people, with one having its kind of hands through the robes controlling another, handing what looks like a black scroll to another individual. And for whatever reason, I was just drawn to that, and I never really paid attention to that before. And this was otherwise left by the previous owners again, that otherwise my old man was using to store certain things in. So I took it off the shelf and put it on the bed, and I opened it, and lo and behold, actually saw a black scroll in there, right, that was otherwise made of velvet textile. So as I picked it up and started to unravel it, I got this message that, what do you think when you look at darkness? What do you think when you see darkness? And I was thinking, wow, that's quite deep. And I remember pondering this for like 30 seconds as I was opening it up. What was otherwise embedded inside of this black scroll was this green garment, textile fabric with white pentagram stars patterned all throughout it, and then a piece of ball of white string. And I got this, and I was just thinking, I was pondering this kind of like question I got as a download. And I was like, what do you think when you see darkness? What do you think when you look at darkness? And I just immediately got this answer and thought that I see nothing but potential, because the darkness is otherwise like the canvas from which stars can shine their light, beings can shine their light, right? Which I thought was quite profound. And so otherwise what happened after that with me, with this black scroll, I was thinking this is very synchronistic. I was led up here, I'm in my head, I got this message about what do you think when you look at darkness? See nothing but potential as a canvas to shine forth your light. I was coming into more revelations, obviously off the back of this, in regards to, the alignment, like I mentioned before, this age of Aquarius, and the importance, also a lot of symbology actually of the griffin was coming through, right? The griffin with, Aquarius being on the spring equinox now, being fixed air, and we know the creatures associated with air, and the king of the air are eagles and like hawks, birds of prey. And then sat right opposite on the autumnal equinox is fixed fire, being Leo, which is obviously the sun, right? So it had all this symbolism coming through. If you merge the lion and the eagle together, you get the griffin. And I remember, based off of what I was confronted with in November in that Scorpio season with the two orbs in Cannon Hill Woods, and what I encountered with Beelzebub, in my first trip since coming back in the house, 5 days before, I kind of got this message of like courage and bravery, Leo the Lionheart, and how that kind of center of our consciousness is linked into bravery and courage, which is otherwise symbolized in the occult with the green lion taking a bite of the sun, which is quite interesting, green being the color of the heart chakra, which is connected into the sun and photosynthesis, which is why you see all the plants that do absorb and turn light into energy are green. And so this was all connecting for me. What also happened during this period was a very interesting phenomenon that otherwise unlocked within my kind of between my second and third chakra, like just below the belly button, around the belly button region, which I think in the freedom teachings is linked into the Ayumbi point. I actually had something release, like there was a pop and a release during this entheogen experience that I had, where I encountered the Persian cat coming into the house, right, and leading me up to the loft with this box. That there was this fire that was released that then actually persisted for about 4 to 5 days after that point, that acted to keep me upright. It was like almost wearing a brace or a corset or something that kept my posture so upright, and otherwise kept me very nourished. I didn't have the feeling of needing to eat hardly anything. I was obviously drinking water, but it was almost as if like I was running on bare minimal, because whatever was unlocked within my anatomy energetically was sustaining me and nourishing me with this kind of like fire, this fire energy, right? Which again was linked into the sun. This is all around just after spring, which is all about the sun crossing over that equinoctial plane, right? The hot crust buns that venerate this, the east star in the east, etc. And so I was like, wow, this is amazing. It was going on for like 4 or 5 days afterwards. And so I remember, I think on my third trip, right? So this was going on for like 4 or 5 days. I remember going to London, and I went to the National Museum, and otherwise took a few days away, stayed at my sister's, and I think I came back, and then I did another trip, this time dealing with what was connected into this drain outside. And so I remember going outside, and I remember seeing also lined up on the washing line were these kind of black crows, and there was 11 of them. And I was thinking, wow, okay, maybe I'm going to use these that are kind of symbolic and tied with some of the forces of darkness that are otherwise maybe connected still with this drain and this disturbance, and otherwise I can use with the garments I found with the black velvet scroll, particularly with the green and white stars and the white string that I had. So what I did, I grabbed these pegs, wrapped it in the garment, wrapped it in that white bit of string that I found in the box connected to the black scroll, right, and wet it. And then as the fire was on in the fireplace downstairs, I just smeared it against the screen, so it was like to make it dry again, in order to personify the forces of darkness. I was almost like torturing them, with me feeling like I was kind of donning the forces of good and light and the sun through the form of a griffin that had kind of caught the forces of darkness and now going to destroy them. And so I was smearing it on the outside of this furnace, this wood burner, and kind of dried it a little bit, and then I opened it up and chucked it in. And then with my intent, I was like wanting to, with the smoke of dissolving the forces of evil, let the smoke carry the intention of my spell across the whole atmosphere of the earth and into the ethers of the earth, right, into the air element and the ethers of the earth, through the fire, the transmuting fire, right, the purification of the fire to get rid of the forces of evil. And then once that was done, I basically grabbed the ashes and I poured some of the ashes down the sink and down the shower, and let the waters run, and let the water carry into the earth, into the aquifers as deep as it possibly can, into the earth, the spell and my intention, right, in order to dispel the force of darkness. So after I did that, which was obviously connected into the drain, like I mentioned before, that felt like there was still some kind of weird connection going on with that. So after I did that, I then opened the drain, and as soon as I opened the drain, there was like a gush of wind, and there was a car alarm that went off. I kid you not. there was a car alarm that went off and a massive gush of wind that I was thinking like, wow, yeah, something's been released. And I kind of remember thinking like, there's a seal has been released, right? And this is all the while I was still having like this mad fire energy that I unlocked in my belly, like just burning still. Okay, so there was a lot of fire energy coming through with me for that week ever since that second trip that I had, right? So it was really, really quite interesting. Now, what happened the next day was I went for a run up Badbury Rings. If you recollect, Badbury Rings is where I kind of saw the firmament, and that's where I had my first mushroom trip with Crowley Jr., 2.5 grams, and that's where the kind of firmament type structure of the hydrogen suspension field revealed itself to me in Earth's atmosphere. That I went up there for a jog, and I went around the back of the site, and I was coming back around to join the main site. There's a backtrack. There's many tracks there, but there's a backtrack that you can take. And I remember there was a crow that all of a sudden flew across my face, and it kind of startled me. But it made me look at the watch that I had on, and the time was 11:11. And then as soon as I saw that, I ran a few more steps, and I can see up the top of where Badbury Rings is, from where I was positioned, there were these two beings on horseback looking directly down at me. Right, obviously interested with the work I'd been doing for the previous week, with what happened, especially the day before, this kind of ceremony, this ritual, and this what felt like the opening of a seal, and releasing that spirit and doing the inner work. That they were looking down at me, and then I kind of was like, wow, that's really weird. It kind of reminded me again of Bali and the two entities looking down at me from the moon, as if I was in some kind of petri dish. That they just appeared out of nowhere. And then I remember jogging again. I had to kind of go back around a bush and then back around again where I can see them, so that the kind of view of them was blocked off. And it was only for like 2 or 3 seconds where I lost sight of them. And I came back round and then was again clocked on to see where they were, and they just disappeared. And so I bolted it right up to the top of the hill where they were, where you've got like a huge vantage point of seeing, because it's so open plan. It's like a massive field. It's a massive site. There's no way they could have gone that I would not have been able to see them unless they just popped out of my reality, as if they were either holographic inserts or, again, beings that can just manifest and demanifest, that are linked into the forces of darkness, the forces of good. I'm not too sure. But that was definitely, again, another experience that was completely sober after, obviously, the work I've been doing the previous day and the previous weeks around Easter. That happened, and I was thinking, wow, that's quite interesting. And so everything started to shift for me after this, because I think it was that night, that afternoon, right, that the Notre Dame fire happened. Okay, and as you can see here, there's a picture of our house cat. She was a lot more settled after I did the ritual the previous day. As you can see, this was kind of like the dying embers of the fire that I used to kind of get rid of the forces of darkness in this mini ritual that I did, carrying the smoke, the intent of the spell work into the smoke, into the Earth's atmosphere, into the air, and then obviously drowning the ashes into the drains, into Earth's aquifers and into the soil, right? So yeah, the cat was happy and I was happy, and there definitely was an energetic shift, which, whether it's connected or not, it could just be coincidence, synchronistic, but certainly that evening, the day after me doing this ritual, I think it was, Notre Dame fire obviously happened, which, burnt the spire, and there was a lot of weird attention around that I was tuned into, that otherwise I'll prove to you guys that I saw in relation to interdimensional entities popping in and out of reality there, whilst this event was unfolding. Okay, so yeah, really interesting series of events that otherwise, I was consciously still working at kind of dispelling the forces of darkness, encountering Beelzebub, having this weird activation in my like ion B point, which other research that I did is connected into so-called Pandora's box. But it was otherwise like this Kundalini fire. There's a lot of fire element. And then obviously we had the fire with my ritual and the fire that happened at Notre Dame Cathedral. So whether it was all connected or not, possibly, obviously given Easter, the star in the east, the sun is fixed fire, Leo. Like I said, it all connected with Griffin, this age of Aquarius that was coming in. So it was very revelationary, in other words, very revealing. And like I said, quite triumphant with what I experienced with that first trip of mine, shifting the energies via me doing this kind of shamanic dance, which shows to me the ancestors knew certainly what they were doing on an energetic, subtle level in order to help dispel ill energies that certainly worked for me at this time. Okay, so very, very interesting. And what we'll do, we'll go into the next slide and show you folks what I saw with the Notre Dame Cathedral of first-hand proof of recording these interdimensional beings popping in and out of reality. That's truly fascinating. So as I was tuning in and watching this live feed on BBC, you obviously see here and a few other news channels, you can see I took a few images of what was going on at the time, and it was quite picturesque, the symbolism, given that the sun was kind of setting as this took place. And there was a few images shown on TV, so you can see on the slide, of like the sun overlooking the smoke and the fire bellowing from the fall of the spire that I witnessed happen live. And how, when I knew obviously later on in the teachings that the kind of spire sites are connected into the Metatronic anti-Christic landmarks on this planet that kind of act as zap stations, whereas the domes are more kind of aligned with the Christic mathematics. Certainly given the rituals I'd done with the fire and the smoke, it kind of all tied in. It was very synchronistic. And as the evening came in, I was watching some of these weird lights start to appear within the two towers and around the vicinity and above the towers that various cameramen were picking up on. And there was even times where the cameramen were zooming in, because it was obvious that there was like these interdimensional entities that I got still screenshots of down below, as you can see, that were like literally popping in and out of reality. And they appeared like upright human figures, where their kind of head were the main parts of the body that were illuminated all the way around. But there were certain aspects of when they were able to like shine forth a light like a spotlight, and it kind of was accompanied with red flashes and white flashes. And at times when it kind of went to face the camera, you'd see what I snapshotted down on the bottom right. It kind of like represent again this hexagon alignment and mathematics. That tuning into it, looking back now, I think these folks were probably aligned with the Metatronic anti-Christic agenda of these archontic beings, given that Notre Dame housed the crown of thorns, the supposed nail, one of the nails from the cross of the crucified Jesus, and a piece of timber from the real cross, right? Which is why after this we're going to get into the three Christ story in order to consider what was really going on there according to the MCO AMCC translations. That I was seeing this, and we'll go to the next slide where I'll put a video of me commenting, which I've already got uploaded on my YouTube channels, that otherwise was very revealing, that I just felt like these were probably Metatronic, and they got drawn to seeing what was going on at a higher dimensional level where they truly exist, but kind of peering into this veil, into this reality. And there was like a bleed through where we were able to see them, that certainly the cameras were picking up on. And quite a lot of the times I witnessed when the cameraman was zooming in, because he was probably thinking like, what the hell is that? Like this is like interdimensional beings popping in and out of a reality, that the studio were cutting the feeds and moving to other angles. But there were certainly some angles that I managed to capture, no thanks to Sky Plus, because I rewound it and then recorded it on my phone, then obviously kept it stored on my computer. So yeah, in the next slide we're going to have a look at basically what I've already uploaded and play it, so you can see these guys pop in and out of reality. And after that I'm going to go straight into summarizing and reading through the three Christ story, okay, and yeah, finish off the rest of this chapter. So very, very interesting.
Of course,
you can't say it's fireman inside.
had just been open.
Can you?
Also, it is
Red, the white,
yet
just
how
watch.
this fire started. We know that there was a lot of work,
So
restoration work
strange.
going on the roof, and that it's thought
where they just
that
like appear and
somehow
then
the flames initially started
drift
there.
around
We've
and then
heard repeated
disappear.
People tell me tonight that the
I don't
initial
know
flames were a yellowy
whether that
green
is
colour,
fireman.
with acrid smoke,
It's-
the smell
There's
passing
another one to
over
the
that
left.
area. Lots of people reporting of
strange.
ash falling down onto the
Look, just the way
nearby.
it pops
We've
up
heard
and then
about,
disappears.
The fact that lots and lots of crowd were standing there,
Yeah, I
emotional,
don't know, mate.
obviously very saddened. Many
The
of
red,
them
the red
tears,
flashes too. Look,
and
the
lots
white
of
and the
them
red.
very still and silent as they just watched.
That's
what
indicative
happened.
of
But of course,
what's happening
to look on a slightly more optimistic
on another
note,
plane of reality.
it does seem as though that main structure
That's just crossing
might
over.
survive, thanks to the work of
Wow,
those
you literally
French
are seeing
firefighters, who are
remnants of the
still,
battle. That's going on.
course, fully engaged there.
So here you can see them up on the bridge,
International fund will be launched to rebuild
supposedly,
Notre Dame
but
Cathedral.
that's
With
fucking
messages
strange.
from right around the world, from President Trump, from Theresa May, from Angela Merkel, all expressing their sympathy and support for France.
Remnants of the battle. That's going on.
Fully engaged there.
So here you can see them up on the bridge.
An international fund will be launched to rebuild
supposedly,
Notre Dame
but
Cathedral.
that's
With the
fucking
messages
strange.
from right around the world, from President Trump, from Theresa May, from Angela Merkel, all expressing their sympathy and support for France.
Building, and particularly the North Tower, one of those
Okay, so pay attention in a minute.
The entrance to Notre
Point
Dame.
it out here and here.
Wouldn't be able to save that.
Watch the lights that appear
from the
and
scene
disappear.
is that the
There you go.
basic
It's one,
stone
two.
structure now appears to
See
be
it
out
all
of
over the
danger.
place.
They have managed to save
Angels.
at least that. The big question
Result of
now,
what's happened.
of course, is how much of the inside
Ready? There it is.
remains.
Lucy Williamson with the latest there in
See it
Paris.
everywhere.
Thank you. And we will
See,
go back
bang, bang.
to Paris
And they just
later
disappear.
in the programme. But now
These are the live pictures.
Look at the orbs, just watch the orbs.
Gothic masterpiece. It is 850 years old. It took 200 years to create.
I think this subject is so important that we're going to read word for word out of Voyages 2, The Secrets of Amenti by Ashiana Dean. Okay, so the three Christs, Elohim and Syrian council favoritism toward Syrian genetic strains and promotion of patriarchal Templar creed distortion, Pleiadian, Arcturian and Andromeda resistance, Nazarites, appointed by Ra Confederacy as co-guardians of Panadorian Covenant, division within the cloister Melchizedek's and Essene Brotherhood, 1240 BC to 12 BC. So, the chaos which resulted from the misfortunes of Akhenaten's reign also created a major division within the ranks of the Elohim of Harmonic Universe 3, the Syrian Council of Harmonic Universe 2 and the Ra Confederacy from the Metagalactic Core. Dispute arose as to what should be done with the program of human evolution. The majority of Elohim had abandoned their loyalty to the human races in general and saved their attentions for Anu Melchizedek's and Hebrew peoples to whom they had closer genetic ties. In the years following Akhenaten's demise, the Elohim and Syrian Council began showing their favoritism of these groups by purposely influencing the developing cultures to adopt the distorted Templar creed. They believed that by promoting male dominance within the races, which was already a rampant distortion promoted by the corrupted Ceres Egyptian line, the course of interbreeding could be controlled. By controlling the women breeders and influencing the male elite to practice interracial discrimination, the Elohim's preferred lineage of humans could be kept genetically pure. These selected chosen ones would be given special privilege of ascension if they followed the teachings of the Elohim's altered Templar creed. The Elohim had basically given up on the rest of the human population and made no attempt to assist the general populace in realigning the damage done to their genetic codes through the propagation of the Templar Axion seal. If you recollect in chapter 7, we went through the symbolism behind the apple and this coitus relationship with this seraphim race, and how women have been subjected through religion in order to control them as breeders with these bloodlines, right, from the fallen factions. That has obviously made women more susceptible to being controlled by these predators. Okay, so it all connects and it all confirms and it all makes a lot of sense. Other members of the Elohim, Pleiadian Star League Council, Andromeda and Arcturian federations felt this preferential treatment was unfair and appealed to the Royal Confederacy for intervention. The Royal Confederacy agreed that this treatment was discriminatory and detrimental to the human evolutionary plan. In 700 BC, the Azarite family of the Royal Confederacy was called into operation as primary protectors of the Covenant of Pelador, and though willing to work with the biased Elohim, the Azarites were given an equal hand in the orchestration of human evolution. Their primary concern was to realign the morphogenetic field of the sphere of Amenti, reintegrate all of the races who had been removed, and prepare the races for another opening of the halls of Amenti to be scheduled in coincidence with the mass ascension wave of 2017 AD. The Azarites and Elohim worked together through the Melchizedek cloister, establishing the Essene Brotherhood about 1240 BC, which was originally designed to bring the undistorted Templar teachings of the Law of One back into manifestation on Earth. The Essenes were originally one of the 25 families within the Melchizedek cloister race. Members of this family were interbred with the Hibiru cloister races to create a hybrid Hebrew strain. The Essenes thus had two primary racial divisions, those of the Melchizedek cloister and those of Hebrew mixed cloister lineage. Within several generations, the biased Elohim took the project in their own direction, interbreeding some of the cloister Melchizedek families with the Hebrew Melchizedeks and promoting the patriarchal Templar creed, which became the primary focus of the Essene Brotherhood teachings. By 1150 BC, the priests of disassociated themselves from the primary families of the Essene Brotherhood and began working with a few select families within the Essenes and the Hibiru and Melchizedek cloisters. These families were chosen to reintegrate the undistorted pure Templar teachings and to work directly with the priests of to ensure the race preparation for the ascension wave of 2017 AD. In 700 BC, the Royal Confederacy gave the Azarites equal directive control over human evolution and appointed them primary guardians of the Covenant of Pelador. The Azarites began their work on Earth through the Essenes of the priests of In 196 BC, the Azarites and the Syrian Council attempted to mend the growing rift within the Melchizedek families by combining the previous teachings of the Melchizedek priesthood with the evolving doctrines of the patriarchal and purist Melchizedeks. The original Melchizedek priesthood, as it exists today, was founded on surface Earth in 1982 BC. Prior to Akhenaten's reign, within the Hibiru cloister race in the area of Salem, which became Jerusalem, an Et Nephilim, an immortal Syrian human hybrid from the Second Selene period, was brought to Earth from Nibiru in 1979 BC, carrying a patriarchal version of the Templar Creed, which allowed knowledge of ascension and genetic protection to reach the Hibiru and Aryan races. This individual became known as Melchizedek, King of Salem. The foundations for the modern-day Jewish religion were laid at this time with the establishment of the priesthood of Melchizedek among the Hebrew, Hibiru, and Aryan races, through which the mystical studies of the original Kabbalah were organized. In 196 BC, some success was achieved in consolidating the Templar teachings by combining the old Templar Melchizedek doctrine with those of the Blue Flame Melchizedek Essenes and the Templar Melchizedek Essenes. Despite this achievement, two primary covert divisions within the Essene Brotherhood remained. The Melchizedek and Hebrew Essenes, who were under the influence of the patriarchal Elohim, were known as the Templar Melchizedeks. They were primarily descendants of the Hebrew Melchizedeks, who had received the Templar seal in 8000 BC, and whose morphogenetic field still remains in Alcyone, not yet reintegrated into the sphere of Amenti. This group emphasized the patriarchal slant of the Templar creed within the Jewish faith and heavily influenced the evolution of the Christian faiths. The Templar Melchizedek Essenes were taught by the Elohim to believe that they were God's chosen people and that they held the key to ascension. And when she refers to the Elohim here, it's the Anu Elohim, and I think at times there were factions that wanted to come back and join and work with the Emerald Covenant under redemption contracts, biogenesis contracts, but then obviously later reneged. Again, that was the issue. So the Templar Melchizedek Essenes were taught by the Elohim to believe that they were the God's chosen people and that they held the key to ascension. The covert group of cloister Melchizedeks within the Essene Brotherhood, who worked secretly with the priests of under the Azarite Council, were primarily descendants of the Blue Flame pure cloister family Melchizedeks. The Blue Flame Melchizedeks had not received the Templar seal in 8000 BC, and the morphogenetic field remained in the sphere of Amenti. Protection of the Ark of the Covenant and the secrets of Amenti had been placed with the Blue Flame Melchizedek Essenes by the Azarite Council. The Blue Flame Melchizedeks taught the original non-patriarchal egalitarian creed of the undistorted Templar creed, including the sacred teachings of the science of ascension, the reality of reincarnation and ET ancestry, and the precepts of unity consciousness and the sacred law of one. The two groups coexisted with each other within the Essene Brotherhood until 12 BC, when the Azarite Council orchestrated the next major event in preparing the races for ascension. So reintegration of the races into and restoration of the sphere of Amenti, the three Christs, the Zionites, and preparation for 2017 AD, during the period of 12 BC to 22 AD. The Azarite Council knew that in order for the races to be prepared for the mass ascension wave of 2017 AD, the integrity of the sphere of Amenti must be restored by realigning the portions of the sphere trapped within the D2 Earth morphogenetic field, the Alcylone morphogenetic fields of Templar Melchizedek's, and those that received the Templar Axion seal during Akhenaten's reign and were stored in Sirius B also needed to be reintegrated into the sphere of Amenti. Despite the failures of Akhenaten's campaign, he had successfully reintegrated the Anu peoples into the sphere of Amenti morphogenetic field, so a similar arrangement was made in reference to the Templar and Templar Axion sealed race families. This time, not only would the races be restored to their place within Amenti, the entire sphere of Amenti would be realigned with the original 12-strand DNA pattern. Realignment of the sphere of Amenti would allow all of the races to heal their genetic distortions in preparation for the opening of the halls of Amenti, and would restore the integrity of the sphere of Amenti so the halls of Amenti could be opened. This realignment project will require the services of a 12th level avatar, whose energetic imprint contained the alignment of 12-dimensional frequencies. This 12th level avatar was to realign the sphere of Amenti in the Alcylone morphogenetic field of the Templar sealed Hebrew and Anu Melchizedek's, and he was intended to bring together the factions within the Essenes that had developed within the Melchizedek and Hebrew cloisters. He would also re-enter the original egalitarian Templar creed back into the teachings of the Essenes. Under the direction of Azarites of the Ra Confederacy in 12 BC, the 12th level avatar, a pure Terran Terranusian 1 soul essence, was born outside of Bethlehem in a private residence to a blue flame Melchizedek Hebrew Essene mother and a blue flame Melchizedek Hebrew cloister Essene father. It was not an immaculate conception, but rather orchestrated via traditional means through a couple chosen and prepared by the priests of Ur. His mother's name was Judai, his father Johias. Both were leaders within the Blue Flame Melchizedek Essene sect. The child's soul essence was born of the Harmonic Universe 4 avatar, Sananda, and the child was named Jeshua Melchizedek, herein Jeshua 12, who later became known as Jesus, son of Mary and Joseph. The personages of Mary and Joseph were not the parents of this avatar child, they were the parents of a 9th level avatar soon to follow. Jeshua 12 was born to descendants of the house of Solomon, and taken in infancy into the custody of the priests of Ur. In 7 BC, the Elohim orchestrated the birth of a 9th level avatar, who would serve to reintegrate the Templar Axion sealed souls of Sirius B back into the sphere of Amenti and restructure the patriarchal Templar creed to be more reflective of the law of one. This child was named Jeshua, herein Jeshua 9, and the stories of his birth to the Hebrew Melchizedek Essenes Mary and Joseph were recorded as the birth of Jesus in contemporary Christian doctrine. Jeshua was not born of an immaculate conception either, but rather through the visitation of an ET Nephilim who, like King Melchizedek had been, was part of the entity named Jehovah. The entity Jehovah, who is one of the original contributors to the creation of the Syrian Anunnaki races of Harmonic Universe 2, had worked with the Elohim since the time of the Treaty of El Anu, 848,000 years ago. Jeshua's mother Mary was also born of ET Nephilim conception. Following the events of Akhenaten's reign, the Elohim did not want knowledge of ET ancestry available to the general human populations, so the truth of Jeshua's birth was hidden within the story of the Immaculate Conception. Through the centuries that followed the births of the two avatars, the life stories of Jeshua 12 and Jeshua 9, plus another man who was not an avatar, became consolidated into one personage called Jesus Christ. With the birth of Jeshua 12, the 12th level avatar, the Hebrew and Melchizedek morphogenetic field in Alcyon was reintegrated into the sphere of Amenti. Through Jeshua 12, the integrity of the Hebrew Melchizedek genetic imprint was restored, and he became known by some as the savior of the Jewish people for this reason. The portions of the Amenti sphere that had been trapped within Earth's D2 morphogenetic field as a result of Akhenaten's reign were realigned, and the integrity of the sphere of Amenti was once again restored. In a greater sense, Jeshua 12 became the savior for the races, for through his birth the halls of Amenti could once again be opened. The realigned sphere of Amenti was kept in storage within the UHF bands of D3, now under protection of the Azarites of the Ra Confederacy. At age 20, 8 AD, following his study in Persia and India, Jeshua 12 was taken to Egypt by the priests of Ur. At the Great Pyramid of Giza, while Jeshua 12 was between 20 and 33 years of age, 8 AD through 21 AD, he and the Blue Flame Melchizedek Essene secretly orchestrated ascension for various groups, directly through the portal passage of the Ark of the Covenant. Ascensions conducted while the halls of Amenti were closed, could only be done through the energy field of a 12th level avatar, whose bioenergetic field could carry the energy fields of others through the seals on the sphere of Amenti. Through the energy fields of the avatar, people could pass through the Ark of the Covenant into the blue flame of Tara's morphogenetic field and into Tara. Through Joshua 12, the Hebrew Essene races that followed the blue flame cloister Melchizedek Essenes were appointed by the Azarites of Ra to share guardianship of the Ark of the Covenant with the Melchizedek and Hebrew cloisters. The descendants of these groups presently carry the full 12-strand DNA package within their gene codes, as this group was one of those chosen in 1972 AD to receive full genetic realignment through interaction with the time-traveling hybrid Zionite race. See Voyages 1, page 38. The Zionites were created during the present-day Zeta infiltration and were sent back in time to realign certain ancestral groups with the 12-strand DNA imprint in order to accelerate the evolution of present-day humans. The followers and descendants of the Joshua 12 Essenes were one of the groups chosen for this realignment. Groups involved with the Zionite genetic restructuring are considered to be of celestial human lineage, as they carry the full 12-strand DNA silicate matrix within their operational genetic codes, regardless of their primary racial line. The silicate matrix appears within family lines as a recessive gene composite, which remains dormant until it is called into action via opening of chakra centers 8 to 15. Various groups within root races 3 to 5 and cloister races 3 to 6, along with several other hybrid race strains, were chosen for this genetic realignment, so the silicate matrix is distributed at random throughout present-day human genetic lines. The greatest concentrations can be found within the Hebrew, Melchizedek, Aryan, East Indian and Tibetan racial lines. During the period that Joshua 12 practiced in Egypt, 8 AD to 21 AD, the second Christ, Joshua 9, grew in popularity among the families of the Templar Melchizedeks and the Hebrew Melchizedeks who were not aware of or interested in the birth of Joshua 12. Joshua 9 was also taken to Egypt for initiation, ascension training, and ordination as a Melchizedek priest, and portions of these rites were conducted by Joshua 12. Prior to his ordination in Egypt, Joshua 9 had traveled through Nepal, Greece, Syria, Persia, and Tibet, training in various interfaith doctrines. Joshua 12 studied primarily in India and Persia before coming to Egypt at age 20, and his Templar teachings showed a stronger Eastern orientation than those of Joshua 9. The training and ascension activities of Joshua 12 and the Blue Flame Melchizedek Essenes remain primarily hidden and practiced as a secret mystery school within Egypt at Giza and in various other locations. The teachings of Joshua 9 became more well known, which caused him progressively more persecution from Roman influence and also within some factions of the Hebrew and Templar Melchizedek race lines who did not accept deviations from the original patriarchal Templar creed as set within the Jewish religion by King Melchizedek. When Joshua 9 was 32 years old in 25 AD, with the assistance of supportive Templar Melchizedek Essenes, the Elohim exiled Joshua 9. His wife, the woman who came to be known as Mary Magdalene in biblical references, which apparently accordingly later on was Joshua 12's true twin flame. So they managed to marry Joshua 9 off to Joshua 12's true twin flame, which obviously created a big problem with the drama that later got rectified according to Ash's updates. And their 3 children to the territories of France to avoid political persecution. Another man by the name of Arahabi, who was a Jerusalem-born Hebrew Anu Melchizedek, was led by the Elohim through a series of visions to believe that he was the true Joshua 9, and this is the man who was crucified. Neither of the Avatar Christ were crucified, and both of them left genetic family lines within the Hebrew Melchizedek races. The sacrifice of Arahabi was orchestrated to divert attention away from Joshua 9, his family and his lineage. The resurrection of the body of Christ, Arahabi, was orchestrated by the Elohim through the use of holographic inserts, but Arahabi was indeed resurrected following the holographic display. In return for his assistance in diverting attention from Joshua 9, the body of Arahabi was restored to life by the Elohim, even though he was not an avatar. He was then taken to India, where he lived for another 30 years. Upon his natural death, Arahabi's soul essence was ascended to Sirius B through the third eye of Horus portal bridge. After his ascension to Sirius B, the Elohim granted him special favor and adjusted his energy field so he could ascend to the Sirius star system in Harmonic Universe 2 via the planetary core of Sirius A in Harmonic Universe 1. The story of Jesus Christ, as it is known in contemporary times, evolved through the mythology the Elohim used to conceal the identity of their avatar, Joshua 9, and to perpetuate their patriarchal slant on the Templar creed. The distortions of the true facts of history were used to protect the lineage of Jeshua 9 from political persecution, making it appear as if Christ had no descendants, thereby allowing those descendants to remain obscured from the public view. The teachings of Jeshua 9 and the Templar Melchizedek became the primary foundations for both the contemporary Jewish and Christian faiths. Both the Jewish religion did not acknowledge Jeshua 9 as their saviour. In truth, Jeshua 12 was the true saviour of the Hebrew peoples, for he re-entered their race morphogenetic field into the sphere of Amenti. Few people knew of Jeshua 12 and his blue flame Melchizedek Essene Ascension School, so the majority of the Hebrew people did not realize that their foretold Messiah had indeed arrived. Even though Jeshua 12's accomplishments went unnoticed by the majority of the Hebrew people, his effect on the restoration of their genetic development was valid, an unseen gift to the Hebrew peoples for which Jeshua 12 did not receive credit. Between 8 AD and 21 AD, while Jeshua 12 practiced ascension rites at Giza, several expeditions were made by Jeshua 12 and the blue flame Melchizedek Essenes. They traveled throughout Egypt and Nubia and into Jerusalem, promoting the original Templar teachings of ascension, gathering together groups of people to take to Giza for ascension. Plans were made to perpetuate the Jeshua 12 lineage, which carried the full 12-strand DNA imprint, and 6 women of various Melchizedek cloister subraces were chosen to bring forth the children of Jeshua 12, the first Christ. Couples were chosen to serve as guardians of these children. Each of the 6 females to receive the seed of Jeshua 12 was matched to a male blue flame Melchizedek, who would serve as adoptive father to the child of Jeshua 12. Jeshua 12 did not interact directly with the raising of these children, nor did he serve as husband to any of the 6 women chosen to carry his seed. The children were created through sacred procreative rites for the sole purpose of perpetuating the 12-strand DNA pattern within the human races. Descendants of these children became spread throughout various regions, some appearing within the French aristocracies, others within the Celtic, Egyptian, and African genetic lines. One line of the descendants of Jeshua 12 now resides within the continental United States. Of the 6 families of Jeshua 12 that were seeded between 18 AD and 23 AD, 5 of the children survived to bring the 12-strand DNA lineage into the contemporary human gene pool. The lineage of Jeshua 9's 3 children also prospered and spread throughout various nations to the present day. In his later years, Jeshua 9 traveled to Tibet, where, with the help of the Elohim, he ascended out of matter in 47 AD to harmonic universe 3 through the portion of Tara's morphogenetic field stored within the planetary core of Venus. This ascension passage requires a 10th strand DNA imprint and is thus not available to most humans without direct assistance in DNA reconstruction by the Elohim, Azarites, or other harmonic universe 2 guardian groups. The teachings of Jeshua 12 were highly censored by Templar Melchizedeks, who later came into political prominence and were kept alive through the secret mystery schools that evolved throughout Europe, Egypt, the Middle East, and in certain parts of China and Indonesia. The teachings of Jeshua 12 were originally included in the manuscripts that became the Christian Bible, but were distorted or edited entirely at various times to suit the needs of the power elite within the evolving political religious machine. Eventually, the teachings were banned by the early Christian churches, for they disclosed the identity and tactics of the Elohim and other ET groups, and told of the divisions within the Melchizedek Templar Creed. Very few of the original Jeshua 12 teachings have survived into the present time, though there are remnants of these teachings secretly preserved in France that will one day be discovered. The original teachings of Jeshua 9 were also distorted and misrepresented through political and religious structures of various times. The teachings of contemporary Christianity, though they provide a basic structure upon which social organization and spiritual initiation can be built, reflect little of the depth, content, or meaning of the original teachings of the Avatar Christs. Following the establishment of Jeshua 12's lineage in 18 AD to 23 AD, the Avatar had completed his work on Earth. The Blue Flame Melchizedeks carried on his teaching legacy and became the primary keepers of the secrets of the Ark of the Covenant in the sphere of Amenti. Various groups were assigned various portions of the whole story, with no one group having the entire chronology of the teachings of Jeshua 12. Jeshua 12 left Earth through the Ark of the Covenant at 39 years of age in 27 AD. He did not die, but rather bodily ascended to Tara and has since evolved far beyond the confines of physical matter. The Ark of the Covenant was resealed within the UHF bands of D3 following its ascension, awaiting the time when Earth's grid rose high enough in vibration to allow for the return of the sphere of Amenti, which was scheduled to occur before the mass ascension wave of 2017 AD. The Azarite Council, Interdimensional Association of Free Worlds, and their many supporters maintain a stance of non-interference following the success of Jeshua 12's mission. They allowed the Elohim and various other host matrix families to direct the course of earthly events as they desired, knowing that the truth of the Templar and the law of one, as upheld by the blue flame Melchizedeks and priests of would eventually come to light within the evolving human consciousness. The Azarites planned to wait until the return of the sphere of Amenti to Earth's core before bringing this knowledge back into the public domain, and in the meantime hoped to unite the Melchizedeks within the teachings of the sacred law of one. Though Joshua 12 had successfully aligned the race morphogenetic field at Amenti with the original 12-strand DNA imprint, most of the races still carried traces of genetic distortions from the Templar and Templar Axion seals, which would need to be cleared prior to the opening of the Halls of Amenti. The Elohim, Templar Melchizedeks, Blue Flame Melchizedeks, and many other unrelated host matrix groups have assisted and continue to assist many individuals in clearing their genetic codes in preparation for ascension. All present-day ideologies that teach conscious evolution and DNA activation and transmutation are geared toward this purpose, including the new information currently being provided by various guardian ET and meta-terrestrial forces. Joshua 12, the 12th level Terranusium avatar from Tara, fulfilled his purposes on Earth. Through him, the sphere of Amenti was made ready for re-entry into Earth's core, following which the halls of Amenti would eventually be opened. The race morphogenetic field had been reunited, so following the opening of the halls of Amenti, all souls could again ascend through Amenti once their genetic imprint had evolved to assemble the 4th and 5th DNA strand. The plan for preparing the races for the 2017 AD ascension wave was put back on schedule. Since 27 AD, when the avatar Joshua 12 ascended, the races of Earth evolved under the primary influence of the Elohim and various other host matrix groups not associated with the Christian and Jewish perspectives. Through the achievements of Joshua 12 and Joshua 9, the primary morphogenetic imprint for all of the races was returned to the sphere of Amenti, and the sphere of Amenti was once again made whole. These accomplishments set the stage for mass ascension, but the races still had a long way to go in healing and evolving their consciousness and genetic codes. The frequency fence quarantine, UHF D3 seal, still blocked Earth from open relations with the interstellar communities. The Ark of the Covenant D5 security seal kept all but the Melchizedek race strains from bodily ascension. The races still carried portions of the Amenti seal, DNA strands 1, 2, and 3 mutation, antiparticle death seal, the Paladorian seal, which is DNA strands 2 and 3 mutation, D4 seal, the Templar seal, DNA strands 2, 4, and 5 mutation, D6 seal, and the Templar Axion seal, DNA strands 1, 5, and 6 mutation, D7 seal, the 666 seal. Within their genetic codes, and the memory of the human lineage still remain locked away within the sphere of Amenti and the UHF bands of the third dimension. These conditions would have to evolve and heal before humanity would be prepared to face the ascension wave of 2017 AD. Throughout the evolution of the races, guardian races attempted to awaken humanity to the reality of its evolutionary destiny. All of the major Earth religions were seeded at one time or another by guardian groups to help the races prepare for their eventual ascension out of Harmonic Universe 1. Though the teachings are often quite different or seemingly contradictory, and all religions have suffered manipulation and distortion at the hands of man and covert intruder ET forces, they are united through their original purpose of achieving ascension and freedom from the illusions of matter. The secrets of Amenti were ultimately kept under the protection of the blue flame cloister Melchizedeks and the Hebrew Essenes who followed them, but the reality of Amenti belongs to all of the races and world religions. The sphere of Amenti, Ark of the Covenant, and the Halls of Amenti represent the manifestation of the Covenant of Palador, which holds the evolutionary promise and progression for all races of the human lineage. It is the promise of humanity returning to the integrity of the immortal God being that is the original morphogenetic imprint of the human race. The promise of ascension is the hidden heritage and legacy of the human condition, the fulfillment of humanity's evolutionary blueprint. So we're just going to recap with what I wrote in my book, where I say, what's more, according to the MCO AMCC teachings, the whole Christ being crucified was a cover-up of the real Jesus, who did not die but ascended via the Ark of the Covenant Stargate in order to establish the external Saviour martyrdom die for your God programming by the fallen forces. They refer to the real Jesus as Joshua 12, as he activated all 12 substrands to allow his Density 4 avatar level identity to anchor in his physical body down here, who incarnated through the Margie-Christic ground lines of the Blue Flame Melchizedek, Hibiru Cloister Essene Mother Judai, and Father Johias. They were descendants of the House of Solomon. As the Asher writes, open quote, Solomon was the son of Father King David, of the Hyksos, Leviathan, Moses, Abraham, Noah Knights, Templar Illuminati line, and Mother Bathsheba, a Ceres Egyptian Essene of the Melchizedek Cloister Indigo Margie Grow line. The Indigo Grail line was carried into the Hyksos Illuminati line through conception of Solomon for the purpose of attempted Emerald Covenant redemption contract bioregenesis of the fallen hybrid Hyksos lineage. This race redemption contract later failed in 27 AD when the Hyksos and their Pleiadian Nibiruan Anunnaki sponsors fully withdrew from the Emerald Covenant to re-enter the Atlantean Luciferian Covenant. Both Indigo and Hyksos lines directly descended from Atlantis. End quote. The being born from Mary and Joseph was Jeshua 9, with the 9 substrand activation, in which Mother Mary apparently was conceived by an ET Nephilim as part of the entity called Jehovah in order to help reintegrate the codes necessary to allow the fulfillment of biogenesis for the souls of the fallen Sirius B Anunnaki races, Hyksos lines, Jehovah, Yahweh, fallen race lines, and change the patriarchal Templar creed to be more reflective of the law of one. The Elohim did not want the truth of Jeshua 9's ET birth known to human populations, so disguised it under the Immaculate Conception. Jeshua 9 is a descendant of the House of David, which provides another lens on this twist of the whole David and Goliath story, with Goliath actually being the Christic friendly giant, and race lines and David representing the fallen Anu Elohim line of Jeshua 9 coming out of the lineage of King David, according to Easha. However, the redeeming fallen races, Anu Elohim, involved with entering into this covenant with the Elohim and guardian races to allow the 9th level oversoul Jeshua 9 in on a Christic Margie Grail line through Mary on bioregenesis to gain more of the D12 ascension codes, reneged on the contract and used Jeshua 9 to help gain more codes to the Stargates, create a massive raider race, and perpetuate the agendas of the fallen Anu Elohim collective here on Earth. According to the MCO AMCC teachings, the being who got crucified, Arahabi, a Jerusalem-born Hebrew Anu Melchizedek, was a follower of Jeshua 9 who looked similar to him and was inspired by visions from the Anu Elohim to die for your God, and thus was used to cover the tracks of Jeshua 9, who was moved to France due to having a loud mouth that started to annoy the Draconian-controlled mob in Rome who seek to destroy him. And obviously the whole point was the Anu Elohim now had an important avatar with an upgrade with more human angelic coding to the grids so they can leave behind their bloodlines and descendants, which one of them goes into the Merovingians in order to, have very powerful bodies for very powerful dark avatar souls to, come in and be on Earth during this time, right? None more so than obviously Jeshua 9, which apparently he is incarnate here at this time. The Anu Elohim couldn't allow that as they now had the upgraded gene code through Jeshua 9. This whole drama later led to the agreement of both sides, Drax and Anunnaki, ordering human Illuminati agents to come together and cover up the whole story of what happened during the Christ period with the Council of Nicaea edited Bible that weaved the 3 stories together into the personage known as Jesus Christ, whilst taking out all of the important stuff of the Stargates, reincarnation, history, races, agendas, ascension, and technologies. This later split into the Drac-controlled Catholic spin and the Anunnaki-controlled Protestant spin through their Illuminati Leviathan races on Earth. The Anu Elohim had supposedly sent Arahabi on a series of visions to die for his God, where they promised him an immortal body if he followed through with the requests, i.e. trickery, of the Anu Elohim, to lead him into martyrdom and be crucified. The crucifixion was also a mockery and allegory for the implants and distortions that were done to the human body here on Earth to help control it, which the Voyagers 2 book diagrams with great detail. We also have the cross representative of a flat pack cube, which is symbolized in the human angelic potential being nailed to the cross/cube of the Anu Elohim's distorted black cube matrix of mutated matter and control of consciousness. It also goes into the occult ritual of sacrificing the firstborn, as mentioned before, and connects into the Metatronic beast implants of the Universal Templar, as we have covered. So now you can see on the slide the real Christ, another lens of this interpretation, right? The real Christ crucifixion checkerboard mutation, which are linked to the Jehovah death seals and Axii tonal lines. So the inner Christ crucifixion and the checkerboard mutation on the box on the right, can read through this. The Pleiadian Nibiruan Anunnaki's NDC grid, which stands for Nibiruan Dyadic Crystal Grid, checkerboard matrix, sonic program running through Earth's Templar since 25,500 BC, reverses the natural 5-letter sequences and polarity of DNA templates 1, 2, 3, and axiotonal lines 1, 2, 3, 4, 7, and 10, and 1/2 of axiotonal lines 5, 8, 11. Resultant DNA template and axiotonal line distortions block the embodied D12 prematter divine Christos blueprint of Earth life forms and link the body to the reverse matrix EM currents of the phantom matrix. The man Jesus Christ, Jeshua 12, was not crucified, he ascended via stargates. The false crucifixion stories was invented by Anu Elohim and Anunnaki to symbolize their intentional crucifixion of the inner Christ D12 Maharata currents within Earth life forms. Checkerboard matrix axiatonal line blockages were represented as the crucifixion wounds of Christ. D12 Maharata Christos current is available on Earth as of January 2000 for the first time since 208,216 BC, offering humanity the opportunity to come down off the Nibirian cross and reset the D12 Divine Christos blueprint within the body via use of DNA template, bioregenesis, Maharic seal technologies, which can clear the NDC grid checkerboard mutation that has reduced human lifespan, chemical DNA, brain function, and blocked race memory since 25,500 BC. Now, what's interesting, because I write in the book and I found out later that the trumpets fired up and then supposedly stopped and then kick-started again in 2016, 2017. And so for the last 7 years, they kind of finished and were cleared finally in 2024 and 2025 that we're in now, that the seventh seal was starting to outpicture and clear. Now we'll go into later chapters. I had an infiltration attempt by Alistair Crowley Jr. where he buried a scarab beetle in this kind of same aorta artery neck left side, as you can see in the chart where kind of J7 and J4 is. So there's a lot of connection of these J seals that are on the left hand side of the neck. And interesting, when last year the so-called 7th and 6th and 7th trumpets were clearing in Earth's biological life forms, which is where it was outpicturing at the time, the next 7 years is outpicturing in the Earth's elemental kingdom. I actually had a lot of weird pains and clearings and symptoms of this energetically taking place in my anatomy, in my left neck area, right? And I also had a scarab beetle infiltration by Alistair Crowley Jr. one time that we'll get to later on in the chapters. So it's definitely all connected, and there seems to be definitely a correspondence down here that I've experienced firsthand, which is quite interesting. But there was a delay in it being shifted and cleared given the escalation in the invisible war drama. Okay, so there seemed to have been a deeper layer where this was kind of like outpicturing again. So we have the axiatonal lines. The axiatonal lines are the points where rotating single flash line sequence transmission lines from the embodied seed crystal seals cross over and through each other to form 12 primary vertical flow lines in the body. The axiatonal lines create the web work of energy by which the scalar wave frequencies of the core Cathara grid and DNA template translate into the chakra, meridian, nadius line, and chemical DNA systems. Each axiatonal line corresponds to a dimension, DNA strand template, chakra, seed and star crystal seal, and dimensional level of consciousness, and carries the color associated with the primary wavelength of its corresponding dimension. So you have the 12 primary axiatonal lines, corresponding frequencies, DNA template, chakras, seed, and star crystal seals, all correspond to one dimension number. So you've got D1 as red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, violet, which are the common 7 chakras, 7 colors of the rainbow. Then we have 8 is gold, 9 silver, 10 blue, black, 11 silver, black, and D12 white. So in the bottom left box, to wrap it up, we've got the unnatural 7 Jehovah's seals, the embodied death seals. The unnatural 7 Jehovah's seals in the body progressively activate in response to release of the unnatural 7 planetary Jehovah's seals implanted in Earth Templar by intruder Jehovah Anunnaki. All J seals are on left side of body along axiatonal line 7. Jehovah Anunnaki designed the J seals program to drag Earth and its life forms into Phantom Matrix. Full activation of the J seals causes biological death, with the astral body and consciousness being drawn into Phantom Matrix. If J seals are not cleared, progressive deterioration of the body results during stellar activation cycles. J seals activate 3 to 12 months after release. Use of the high Vector codes and Christos Trine Marge field link are the only ways to clear J seals. Seals clear in layers over time as they are time released. Synchronized with J seals release phases in the planetary Templar. Use of high Vector code tone sequence with Maharic seal running of the D12 Maharata current is the place to start for J seal clearing. See Christos Trine Marge fields, Vector code and universal life force current chart for Vector code tone sequence. That's out of a book, Voyages 2, The Secrets of a Mentee. So to offer another perspective, I write in my book, however, worth considering, Manny P. Hall shares a different view of the crucifixion from a Gnostic point of view, open quote. To the Gnostics, the Christ was the personification of Nous, the divine mind, and emanated from the higher spiritual aeons. He descended into the body of Jesus at the baptism and left it again before the crucifixion. The Gnostics declared that the Christ was not crucified, as this divine Nous could never suffer death, but that Simon the Cyrenian offered his life instead, and that the Nous, by means of its power, caused Simon to resemble Jesus. Irenaeus makes the following statement concerning the cosmic sacrifice of the Christ. When the uncreated, unnamed Father saw the corruption of mankind, he sent his firstborn nous into the world in the form of Christ for the redemption of all who believe in him, out of the power of those who have created the world, the demiurgus and his 6 sons, the planetary genii. He appeared amongst men as the man Jesus and wrought miracles. Close quote. He references here, see King's Gnostics and their remains. The crown of thorns is said to be symbolic of blocking the higher chakra activations in third eye, with the nails in the feet and hands also preventing the ability to heal and transmit energy through the hands and run ground anchor energy into the grids of the earth via the feet. The spear in the side can also be interpreted as targeting the spleen, which is symbolic of the implant and mutation there to control the miasms in the blood chemistry, preventing the spleen from clearing certain distortions implanted into the blood to help run the reversals and control technologies in the human template. Some pictures diagram the spear entering the right side, which would be the origin of the liver, another symbolic allegory of the astrological interpretations, as Jupiter connects to the liver in our anatomy, being the greater benefic, having its domicile in Pisces and connections to Jesus representing the sun, and planets associated with the age of Pisces, as we have discussed, is certainly an organ that purifies us of our sins/toxins that we put into our body, as it is the chief detoxification organ, that is the liver, in our body. Moreover, it is the only organ in our body that can lose 90% of itself and regenerate itself through new living cells and not scar tissue, which commonly occurs everywhere else, offering us another salient lens in which to interpret the Jesus and crucifixion myth. Occultists such as Manly P. Hall also write about the mystic symbolism of the cross and crucifixion as an allegory. Thus, open quote, the cross represents terrestrial life, and the crown of thorns the sufferings of the soul within the elementary body, but also the victory of the spirit over the elements of darkness. The body is naked to indicate that the candidate for immortality must divest himself of all desires for terrestrial things. The figure is nailed to the cross, which symbolizes the death and surrender of the self-will, and that it should not attempt to accomplish anything but its own power, but merely serve as an instrument wherein the divine will is executed. Above the head are inscribed the letters INRJ, whose most important meaning is In Nobis Regnant Jesus, which translates to Within ourselves reigns Jesus. Close quote. Important to note, according to Iasha, our harmonic universe 1, where we find ourselves, is said to be 3 times as dense compared to an organic eternal life crystallic system, which is no surprise given the manipulations of our reality field that have subjected us to the often oppressive forces of the element Earth on the soul/spirit here, which is also aptly represented in the carbon element with 6 neutrons, 6 protons, and 6 electrons, 666, being another sign of the beast, symbolic of the prison the matter body in our earth has become. No wonder why the mystics always taught, when you are born, you die, and when you die, you are born again, as your soul/spirit, which is your true form, is released from the tomb that is this mutated body. How they have made our planet and bodies into prisons for our soul spirit is best personified in the Dance of the Seven Veils by Salome, which represents these energetic vices, which are chakras, and or maybe these J-seals that have locked us in to be crucified to the mutated matter body of Earth that must go through an alchemical process in order to reawaken again, which goes right into what we have already covered with activating our templates. Furthermore, when looking at the crucifixion as a cosmic allegory, Manly P. Hall writes, open quote, Saviours unnumbered have died for the sins of man and by the hands of man, and through their deaths have interceded in heaven for the souls of their executioners. The martyrdom of the God, man, and the redemption of the world through his blood has been an essential tenet for many great religions. Nearly all these stories can be traced to some worship, for the glorious orb of day is the Saviour who dies annually for every creature within his universe, but year after year rises again victorious from the tomb of winter. Without doubt, the doctrine of the crucifixion is based upon the secret traditions of the ancient wisdom. It is a constant reminder that the divine nature of man is perpetually crucified upon the animal organism. Certain of the pagan mysteries included in the ceremony of initiation, the crucifixion of the candidate upon a cross, or the laying of his body upon a cruciform altar, among those connected historically or allegorically with a crucifixion of Prometheus, Adonis, Apollo, Attis, Bacchus, Buddha, Krishna, Horus, Indra, Ixion, Mithras, Osiris, Pythagoras, Quetzalcoatl, Semiramis, and Jupiter. Close quote. Now, under the Rosicrucian crucifixion interpretations, Manly writes, open quote, the solar crucifixion is an outstanding example of the astronomical knowledge possessed by the so-called prehistoric world. In Herschel's ground plan of the universe in human form, writes Albert Ross Parsons, our solar system is located at the heart of the divine man of the skies. Hence, the catastrophe in our solar system, by which the ecliptic was sundered from the celestial equator, was a rupture or piercing of the heart of the divine man. The ecliptic and equator no longer coinciding, they formed a cross upon which the divine man was transfixed in space. This idea was familiar to the Hindus and to Plato. Hence arose the prehistoric Christianity, the religion of the Lamb, slain from the foundation of the world of the book of Revelation. Ignoring the story of the crucifixion in its literal sense, the Gnostics considered only its cosmic import. In Rosicrucian mysticism, the Christ spirit is said to have established a direct link with the earth through the blood which poured from the wounds in the hands, feet, and side of Jesus. Being the ancient symbol of the secret doctrine, the cross represented to the initiate that divine institution which, releasing the heavenly man from his animal part, launches the spiritual nature into the sphere of reality. Therefore, the cross may be said to be the emblem of philosophical death, and the mysteries cannot achieve their end until they have caused each of their neophytes to pass victoriously through the cycle of suffering, death, and resurrection. Man crucified passes through death upon the symbol of life, and attains to life upon the symbol of death. The break between the self and the not-self is thus complete, and the spirit, emerging from its chrysalis, leaves the empty shell behind as a token of its attainment. The agony of the Saviour, consequently, is not the agony of death, but the agony of birth. Only to him who has found his life by losing it is the mystery comprehensible. Close quote. The mysteries also knew that birthing into this plane was akin to death, given the manipulations done to the human template, only allowing a slither of your higher identity consciousness in body on this world, no thanks to what the NDCG, Liberian Dialect Crystal Grids, has done since the fall of Atlantis. As Manly writes, open quote, to the Eleusinian philosophers, birth into the physical world was death in the fullest sense of the word, and the only true birth was that of a spiritual soul of man rising out of the womb of his own fleshly nature, close quote. According to the Rosicrucian Brotherhood, Manly P. Hall also writes that the adepts, open quote, were believed to have been able to teach man how to function away from his physical body at will by assisting him to remove the rose from the cross. They taught that the spiritual nature was attached to the material form at certain points, symbolized by the nails of the crucifixion, but by 3 alchemical initiations which took place in the spiritual world in the true temple of the rose cross, they were able to draw these nails and permit the divine nature of man to come down from its cross. End quote. This interpretation ties in beautifully well with the diagram checkerboard mutation as taught by the MCEO, and also what we read in the book with how the ascension rites were taught by Joshua 12 and the priesthood of at Egypt in these secret societies. So you can see how in some of these mystery schools that have spanned and come up through to this modern time would have had essences and parts of the truth. Whether there's institutions and secret societies that have the full truth embodied and have not been infiltrated, I cannot comment on that. My suggestion is a lot of infiltration has happened, and there's been a lot of, twists and manipulations in there to direct people into a more phantom matrix ascension rather than a true Christic organic ascension. But there could well be still orders that are, protecting what was otherwise done with the rites and passages and rituals of, what the Rosicrucians are saying, that connects into this implant with the nails, right, in order to remove the rose from the cross, which certainly can be allegorized by what we've just seen with the checkerboard mutation, Jehovah's death seals, and the ET lens of this crucifixion myth in our anatomy. So with the Asher now commissioned as Speaker 1 for the Melchizedek Cloister Emerald Order Councils, like Jesus was during the Christ period, we see that Jesus was simply one among many individuals who were part of an order of enlightened teachers / ascended masters on a service mission here in external creation. This theme is written about and known within the occult, where Manny exclaims, open quote, if Jesus was God incarnate, as the solemn councils of the church discovered, why is he referred to in the New Testament as called of God and high priest after the order of Melchizedek? The words after the order make Jesus one of a line or order of which there must have been others of equal or even superior dignity. If the Melchizedeks were the divine or priestly rulers of the nations of the earth before the inauguration of the system of temporal rulers, then the statements attributed to St. Paul would indicate that Jesus either was one of these philosophic elect or was attempting to re-establish their system of government, close quote. So I write, all of these interpretations are all certainly worth considering. However, the MCO AMCC teachings never addresses this concept of the astro-theological interpretation, with Jesus conveniently incarnating when the age of Pisces started, with Jupiter being its ruler, and obviously having links to Jupiter Zeus, Jesus, Jesus, or Jeheshua for that instance. Out of all the names, why start with a J, and have it phonetically very similar to Jupiter Zeus, which was the Greek name for this planet? Merge the two and you have Jesus. The sun, or rather Son of God, our star, taking on and projecting the characteristics of Pisces while simultaneously illuminating the Virgin Mother Mary, Virgo, right opposite with this alignment cannot be ignored. They obviously had a huge influence down here on Earth with what unfolded in the literal sense of the story and what has formed as important philosophical truths cloaked in allegory as Manly P. Hall helped us uncover. So we have an important point, as Manly P. Hall emphasizes in The Secret Teaching of All Ages, when recognizing the difference between the geocentric versus heliocentric astral light, open quote. The geocentric astrology, as its name implies, is confined to the earthly side of nature, while heliocentric astrology may be used to analyze the higher intellectual and spiritual faculties of man. The important point to be remembered is that when the sun was said to be in a certain sign of the zodiac, the ancients really meant that the sun occupied the opposite sign and cast its long ray into the house in which they enthroned it. Therefore, when it's said that the sun is in Taurus, it means astronomically that the sun is in the sign opposite to Taurus, which is Scorpio. This resulted in two distinct schools of philosophy, one geocentric and exoteric, and the other heliocentric and esoteric. Thus, Jesus can be interpreted as the Son of God in the age of Pisces, who champions the characteristics of that sign and the planets associated with it, Jupiter and Neptune, domiciled, and Venus exalts, which is fixed air. So the aqua represents water, air is obviously air. Fixed air sign depicting the spiritual waters of life that governs I know. Sat right opposite is Leo, which governs I will. I will know, and I know I will. A new covenant is about to be written. Just like the Old Testament was the sun in the age of Aries, the New Testament was the sun in the age of Pisces. We are on the precipice of a New Testament/covenant with this age of Aquarius that will probate the old age of Pisces to make way for the new. Question is, how aligned to the true word/intent and divine will of God are these prophecies and shifting of ages? How much can we rely on it given evidence of galactic, solar and planetary manipulation, as we have covered when seeing what the MCO, AMCC and Ascension Glossary say about the zodiac and astrology? Let's dissect this some more when elevating our consciousness to the stellar level or astro level interpretation of these prophecies and grand celestial beings we call stars and planets. Jesus, the Son/Son of God, now entering Aquarius. The sun helps create the planets and elements in our solar system and plays a crucial role in creating a holographic reality. The sun is the physical manifestation of the fire of God, which programs matter. Our DNA receives these codes/programming from the light in order to help recode our reality/perception and experience. The sun is a loving and intelligent creator, without which no life will be able to exist on Earth. The sun will now be radiating light codes that are characteristic of Aquarius, which governs knowledge, technology, innovation, sovereignty, freedom, but on the flip side will activate the powers of Saturn, Satan, Ahriman forces, which can lead to tyranny, suppression, oppression if left unchecked. Uranus is said to govern the first 1,000 years, and Saturn the last 1,000 years of this age. As you can see there in the top left-hand corner, there's like a chart and a diagram that represents this splitting of the age of Aquarius, where Uranus comes in and kind of rules of that first 1,000 years, which is quite interesting because that was otherwise linked to the 852 downstep of the Crystal River failsafe passage that was apparently going from the deity planes, 852 internal suns, down the chain in the Aquaferri matrix, the 852 into M31 852 into our matrix, then at a galactic level, 852, which is Uranus, Meldek, Venus, and then the 852 corresponding gate networks here on Earth. So that seemed to, at a certain period of time, be the case of Uranus particularly playing this role with the eighth planet to help anchor in the kind of failsafe currents, which is linked into the 1,000 years, 900 years of the Crystal River Bridge and the Millennial Kingdom, as mentioned in the Book of Revelation. It says in the Bible that Satan will be bound for 1,000 years as the Millennial Kingdom is established, symbolizing the rulers of this age and their allotted time according to temporal laws. We also have the sun illuminating the constellation of Leo set opposite, which is the only domicile of the sun, being fixed fire, illuminating the heart chakra, with Aquarius associated with the shins and circulation that Leo the Lionheart pumps life into. This alignment brings into the forefront the divine cherubim, which also connects into the guardian Alpine and Apine systems of the man, Aquarius, the ox being Taurus, eagle Scorpio, and lion Leo. This coincides with the stellar activation cycle where interdimensional gates across density/harmonic universes open up and connect, allowing for Stargate travel of souls and whole planets, stars, and systems up the vertical stack of our holographic time matrix. In addition, an interesting phenomena took place when Pope Benedict XVI resigned on February 11th, 2013, where a lightning bolt struck St. Peter's Basilica just hours after his announcement. Many writers say that this new age of Aquarius has been delayed because the old order are not willing to give up what they built under the age of Pisces. Regardless, it all certainly rhymes with the other materials in this transition that is underway that the Bible refers to as the 1,000-year millennial kingdom, and the MCO AMCC teachings refer to as the Crystal River Failsafe Host 900 to 1,000-year bridge zone project to allow souls to ascend. So all worth considering. Can the Drax or Anunnaki play God and through technology deliver a lightning bolt like that? I would say absolutely yes. But could God source and the Guardians? I think so too. Or can this be a phenomenon enacted by the planets, signs and stars themselves? What's more, according to the MCO AMCC teachings, we do have a race of beings who are called the Aquafarians and or Aquarii, Earth incarnate lines from a different Akasha Aya, which is helping to host Earth's ascension to Andromeda and back into the eternal internal deity planes during this end time stellar activation cycle. This is closely connected to the sign of Aquarius, as this alignment dictates the opening of the stellar activation cycle within the Universal Templar, which Earth is Universal Stargate 3, to allow souls to ascend into high densities and dimensions naturally. These beings are part of the families of consciousness of the Christic dragon races and Cartesian races. They're connected to Andromeda, which is apparently where the Milky Way had fallen from and is the last stop before making that transition into the eternal internal creation domains. Thus can be another lens in which to interpret the sign of Aquarius, with the man holding the pitcher pouring forth the spiritual waters of energy in souls incarnating here during these times. Here's what the Essential Glossary has to say about the Aquafarians, open quote. The Aquafarians have returned to this troubled universal time matrix as the crystal star ascension host to help open the 13th gateway and aquiline sun and to help repair the planetary staff, while hosting the opening beyond the Yahweh system into the transdimensional doorways that provide for transits and soul rescue. The Aquafarian shield holds the genetic record that is called the Blue Feathers, which represents the 12 tribes of the Christic Aquafarian races from Andromeda in the Christed Eternal Tree of Life. The Aquafarian Blue Feathers shield is to help clear out the Yahweh matrix and Metatronic infection of reverse light coding in the Earth human 12 tribes DNA, coding and tribal shield. This appears to be rehabilitating the architecture in the planetary Albion body, in which the structure for the spine of Albion has intersected with the Blue Feather host shield into the Silver Sanctum in the Lyran platforms and then out of the Golden Gateway into the Gold Worlds. There again we have reference to the Golden Gateway through Ophiuchus and the Cradle of Lyra and the Gold Worlds. My natal chart shows me as a Piscean under the tropical model, which always has Aries at the spring equinox on March 21st, which is a true representation of the forces and influences of the cardinal fire that sign brings for that time of year, which is spring, from a northern hemisphere perspective. However, factoring in the precessional slippage under what they call sidereal astrology, where the planets and sun actually are in relation to the signs, I'm an Aquarian with Leo as my ascendant, bearing the exact alignment of this new age with Aquarius, Scorpio, Leo and Taurus, all forming the divine cross, otherwise personified in the cherubim, that's symbolic of the opening of these gates. I certainly recommend considering and analysing both the tropical and sidereal forms of your chart. Even within the sidereal model, you can also check the 12 signs that designates the 30-degree equal share for each sign in order to find clues and hints in your life when getting to know thyself better and start unraveling your identity, purpose, gifts and any vices you need to be aware of in order to transmute them and become ultimately a master of your stars. Also, highly recommend using Gematria Calculator online to check things such as your name, as well as identifying patterns with your initials and their corresponding placement on the zodiac wheel when labeling the alphabet around the wheel, with A at Aries, G at the zenith, M on the cusp of Libra and Virgo, T at the winter solstice, and so on. As I'd found out with my initials, AGM, were directly aligned with the Royal Arch in Freemasonry, representing the spring and summer months and signs associated with that from the Northern Hemisphere perspective. Okay, so you see, got a little article from Universal Truth School by Santos Bonacci with a picture of what actually happened, the lightning bolt strike in the Vatican St. Peter's Basilica, okay, around 2012, I think it was, or 2013. And what's interesting later, as I found out, with Bill Turner, who's like a master in decoding the legal tricks and traps of the system with the strawman deception, but also really good at picking up on occult symbolism, which plugs into this 777 failsafe host that's underway with the D-span deity gates, said, and I quote, that with this new age, this turning of an age, right, we had the Old Testament was the age of the sun in Aries, which was Moses. We had just recently the age of Pisces, which is the sun in Pisces. We're now post 2012 in the age of Aquarius, but he said it's been this long for them to basically give up control that it's taken a long time to get rid of the evil guys, right, for it to usher in. And he said that there's 777 books in this New Testament of the Age of Aquarius, which is going to be the rule book for this new age. And that ties into the 777 D-span gates of the failsafe, okay, that's going forward, which is so very interesting. So you can see here, the G being the 7th letter is resting at its throne on the summer solstice between the signs of Gemini and Cancer. Gemini representative of the twins Castor and Pollux, the pillars to Solomon's temple, which the G stands for, which is perhaps linked to the famous two-pillar and arch symbolism we see that's famously represented in a lot of Freemasonic art. The two pillars also called Boas and Jachin. Coming back to Jupiter, having done the research, we can see there are discrepancies surrounding this sphere given the ties with the 66 gate network, serpents, Zeus, okay, harvesting with Jupiter ascending, and the Kabbalah, where so-called Jehovah had manifested himself through the character of Jupiter, who may have delivered the bolt to signify the handover from one aspect of his control to another. Okay, obviously you saw in the previous image the lightning bolt hitting the St. Paul's Basilica after the Pope resigned or just before a new Pope was announced, right? And how that's linked into Jesus, Jupiter Zeus. Moreover, it's clear astrology labeling Venus and Jupiter as being the greater and lesser benefics could certainly be challenged given what we have already unpacked with these two spheres that would suggest a more appropriate description as maybe a lesser evil compared to the greater and lesser malefics of Saturn and Mars respectively. But so many astrologers label Jupiter and Venus as the greater and lesser benefics. Even Gustav Holst with his Symphony of the Planets helps to capture the essence of these spheres through music which accurately depicts the conventional logic of these stars we have all been led to believe. How do they measure and or find out the characteristics of these spheres and their influences? How accurate are they? We know for sure that Saturn and Mars seem to confirm their nature, but Jupiter and Venus, for me at least, are very suspicious. Regardless, we can certainly draw the virtues and Christic influences from these spheres and transmute the Metatronic distorted vices in order to heal our template and align ourselves with better fortunes and astral light. So from what we have unpacked, it looks like we have a real Joshua 12 who is in alignment with the law of one, and a so-called false Christ or Antichrist in the form of Joshua 9, the supposed Alpha and Omega, Son of God, with God being Yahweh Jehovah, with the supposed third party used to cover up the existence of the other two and the knowledge they were sharing, but also used by the fallen races, and particularly the bloodlines left behind too, the descendants. This will become of great import later as I unpack my own personal experiences surrounding this entity Jesus Christ and this whole three Christ story. We also have the astrotheological interpretations we cannot ignore, with Joshua 12 aligning to an emissary of the Sun, solar Christ consciousness, and Joshua 9 an emissary from Saturn, the Antichrist consciousness, and home to the Yahweh Jehovah Apollyon, Abaddon Alpha and Omega, Black Hole Collective. Okay, so there you see on a diagram of the sine wave, which is the holy science, which in that, through the Neither Self presentations and astrotheological presentations by Santos Bonacci, can reveal a lot as being the cause for pretty much all of theology and many fairy tales and other things that we see down here, which controls the realm of effects. It can be a program, but the given fact that we already live in a hologram, which yes is 1 2/3 Metatronic energies and mathematics, it's still an energy system and a matrix that we are subject to, that I think if you do not know or learn, you're going to be more in a precarious situation to be subject and one to control these forces when compared to someone who knows the characteristics of these forces and the different angles, arcs and degrees that these bestow down here within the elemental kingdom, the atomic etheric kingdom, and our mental consciousness kingdoms, right? That we can certainly then become a master of our stars, as I allude to. And then if you just simply close the sine wave and bring it back around on itself, you create a wheel, and you can see here the English alphabet and the zodiac wheel. My initials are AGM, right? And so it's quite interesting that I kind of plugged that in, realized that, oh my goodness, okay, yes, I can see it's kind of like the royal arch, right, of the golden spring and summer months from a northern hemisphere perspective. But again, a lot can be revealed when using this with decoding the mysteries. Okay, that I highly recommend studying, because like I said, it just offers you that different angle of being able to then dissect everything else that we can otherwise see and what majority of people get their hands on, before then also coming into the more ET, interdimensional, extraterrestrial based lens of what the MCO, AMCC teachings provide. That certainly work together, I believe, to complement one another. And so yeah, coming back to Easter 2019, I had a wonderful synchronistic moment happen on Easter Sunday when my father sent me a photo of an eagle graffitied on a wall by the beach he was visiting and a video of a sea lion making its way to the beach, otherwise confirming the eagle and lion symbolism of what came through strongly over those few weeks with Aquarius and Leo, air and fire, the eagle and lion forming the Gryffindor, which any Harry Potter fan will know is an interesting occult fable of the hero's journey. I also had my mother send me a short video of her beginning to take off on holiday that morning on the plane, only to all of a sudden show the plane slam on the brakes and slow down with an announcement that then cut off. I inquired later what happened when she landed, and apparently a bunny hopped out into the runway and the pilot had to stop. As I was beginning to realize, God, the guardian spirits from both the light and dark, can work through signs, symbols, people, and events to reach out to you with synchronistic messages, confirmations, and warnings. Most of the time, people are not even aware, but are nudged by the spirit in their sub and unconscious selves to send these synchronicities to you. So there you have it, guys. Very interesting chapter to dissect. More wonderful and entheogen experiences, more paranormal supernatural activities and activations for myself, and consciously working to ritualize destroying the forces of evil here on the planet. That certainly had a few outpicturings, which are quite interesting, and then coming into revelations of this alignment and knowing how to work with looking at these myths and stories through multiple lenses again, which can give us a new inside look as to the Jesus Christ story, especially with the 3 Christ story models, as well as looking at it within a cosmic allegory myth, right, of this whole process of initiation and removing the rose from the cross from the otherwise mystery schools, and seeing how some of the truth is certainly being preserved and kept trickled down through these secret sects and orders ever since the supposed Joshua 12 was ordinating and instructing individuals who are ready to actually ascend in Giza, Egypt, back during that Christ period. That is certainly worth considering going forward on anyone's journey, as with myself. And as I alluded to before, when I read about this story in end of 2022, around New Year's Eve 2022 coming into 2023, when reading about what Jesus Christ, the real one, with this story Joshua 12, did when he was all said and done here, ascending up through the Ark of the Covenant Stargate, I actually had a dream, lucid dream, where I was inside a pyramid of the Ark of the Covenant Stargate that Joshua 12 used to ascend out here last time, with a woman showing me the control panel and the rod, which was a tool, the Stargate tool, the Ark of the Covenant, which goes into the whole Ark of the Covenant Stargate box. And the mystery behind that was actually housing this tool, which can draw UHF, ultra high frequency interdimensional energy from density 2 into it in order to obviously operate the Stargate. And she was showing me that you use this. Basically, without this, it's like having a car without a steering wheel, because you use it to select your space-time coordinates. And I thought, wow, what an amazing experience. So again, it was confirming to me, I guess, some of the credibility of these claims when having this lucid dream experience. Okay, so thanks for tuning in, guys. Thanks for watching. And I will see you over in the next one in chapter 10, where we'll be going through my period in Bournemouth of the summer of 2019, after this was all done, and the Black Mirror AI technologies, Pluto, angels and archangels, Merkaba, encountering a seraphim in another entheogen experience, my New Forest November trip, again in Scorpio. This was another challenging experience. Christmas 2019 Kundalini experience after actively working to raise the chrism, and chakras and the Jed and Jedi. Okay, so thanks for watching, folks. Stay safe as always and stay sovereign, and I'll see you in the next one. Ciao for now.